Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky painted with hues of pink and orange. In the heart of an ancient forest, a man named Aiden stumbled upon a cave mouth hidden by tangled roots and vines. With a sense of excitement and trepidation, he descended into the darkness, armed with only his curiosity and the knowledge he had spent years gathering from dusty scrolls and crumbling texts. As he ventured deeper, the air grew colder, and a strange energy pulsed through the walls. Aiden's heart raced as he entered a chamber illuminated by an eerie green glow emanating from a stone altar in its center. On the altar, an object lay dormant, a creature unlike anything Aiden had ever seen. Its form was twisted and grotesque, yet it held a haunting beauty. As he approached, the creature's eyes flickered open, revealing a pair of golden irises that seemed to burn with an inner fire. Aiden's instincts screamed at him to run, but his curiosity overpowered fear. He took a step closer, reaching out tentatively to touch the creature. As his fingers brushed against its skin, the beast recoiled violently, snarling and baring rows of jagged teeth. "Who are you?" Aiden demanded, trying to keep his voice steady despite his shaking limbs. "And what are you doing here?" The creature growled, its eyes narrowing as it seemed to regard him with a mixture of confusion and hostility. Aiden could sense the immense power surging within the beast, a power that he had only ever read about in ancient texts. "I am Aiden," he said, extending his hand in a gesture of peace. "I have come to learn more about you." The beast hesitated for a moment before lowering its guard and allowing Aiden to touch it once more. As their hands connected, Aiden felt an electric current pass between them, sending shockwaves through his body. He collapsed onto the cold stone floor, gasping for air as the world swirled around him. When he finally regained consciousness, he found himself back in the forest, disoriented and trembling. As he struggled to stand, a familiar voice echoed through the trees. "You've awakened something, scholar," it said. "Now you must learn to control it." Aiden turned to see High Priestess Elysia, her eyes gleaming with malice as she approached. "Who are you?" he asked again, his voice trembling with fear. "I am the leader of the Order of the Abyss," she replied coldly, "and I want what you have awakened." Aiden knew that he couldn't let her take the creature. He had to learn more about it and find a way to control its power before Elysia and her cult could exploit it. With newfound determination, Aiden vowed to protect the beast and uncover the truth behind their shared origins. With a newfound sense of urgency, Scholar Aiden tread lightly through the dense forest. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that stretched across the ground like spectral tendrils. The reawakened being, Beast Sybil, trailed behind him. Aiden could feel her presence, a faint pulse of energy that matched his own growing darkness. "I have never seen a creature such as yourself," Aiden said, addressing Sybil for the first time since they had left the cave. "Yet I feel strangely connected to you." Sybil's eyes glowed faintly in response, and her form rippled slightly. "Connected?" she asked, her voice a low rumble that echoed through the forest. "Yes," Aiden replied, his heart racing with excitement at the prospect of understanding this creature. "I am Scholar Aiden, a scholar of ancient lore." Sybil's eyes flickered in the darkness, and her form seemed to shimmer as if she were considering his words. Then, with an unexpected abruptness, she spoke again. "The forest has grown thick around us," Sybil said. "We must find shelter before nightfall." Aiden nodded, agreeing with her assessment. The trees loomed overhead like skeletal fingers reaching out to snatch at them in the gathering gloom. With a sense of apprehension, they ventured deeper into the forest, their senses alert for any signs of danger. As night fell, they stumbled upon a hidden clearing. In its center stood an ancient oak tree with massive roots that seemed to stretch for miles underground. The tree's branches stretched out like gnarled fingers, offering shelter from the encroaching darkness. "We will camp here," Aiden decided, his eyes scanning their surroundings for predators. "It's our best option." Sybil followed him into the clearing and settled down beneath the tree's protective branches. Aiden lit a small fire using flint and dry twigs he found nearby. As they sat in silence, he couldn't shake the feeling that their presence was being observed. He looked around nervously, but there were no signs of danger. Suddenly, from the shadows emerged High Priestess Elysia, flanked by several members of her cult. "Ah, I see you've found our precious subject," she said, her voice dripping with malice. Aidan stood protectively in front of Cybele, his eyes narrowing as he glared at Elysia. "This creature is not for your cult to use. She is innocent." Elysia laughed coldly. "Innocent? Hardly. You are both monsters, and it is my duty to harness the power within you." Aidan felt his anger boil over, a surge of primal fury coursing through him. He reached out to Cybele, her energy pulsing beneath his fingertips. "We will not let you take her," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. With a flick of her wrist, Elysia sent a bolt of lightning arcing towards the pair. Aidan threw himself in front of Cybele, shielding her from the attack. The force knocked him to the ground, but he stood up again, ready for a fight. The battle that ensued was fierce and brutal. Aidan drew upon his knowledge of ancient spells and summoned ethereal blades of energy to defend himself against Elysia's powerful magic. Cybele joined in, her own powers manifesting as a swarm of shadowy tendrils that ensnared the cultists. In the end, Aidan and Cybele emerged victorious, their newfound bond stronger than ever. As they surveyed the fallen bodies around them, Aidan knew that this was only the beginning. They had many challenges ahead, but together, they would face whatever came their way. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening, the sun dipped below the tree line, casting eerie shadows across the dense forest floor where Aidan and Cybele stood, panting heavily. The battle had tested them both, but they emerged unscathed. "We must find shelter before nightfall," Aidan panted. "I know a hidden clearing not far from here." He led her through the woods, his senses heightened by Cybele's presence. The forest seemed alive around them, as if listening to their every footstep. Their path was treacherous, vines snaked across the ground, and thick foliage obscured any signs of civilization. As they pushed through a dense thicket, Aidan stumbled upon a small clearing, illuminated by the fading light of day. A fire pit sat in its center, surrounded by dried twigs and flint. "Perfect," he said, relief washing over him. "We can make camp here." They gathered wood for their fire, working together efficiently despite their initial animosity. As they worked, Cybele turned to Aidan, her eyes filled with curiosity. "Tell me more about your world," she asked softly. Aidan hesitated, unsure how much of his past he should reveal, but something in her voice made him open up. He spoke of the bustling cities, the towering spires, and the wonders of human civilization. Cybele listened intently, captivated by tales of a world long lost to her memory. As night fell, they sat around their crackling fire, sharing stories and slowly forming a bond. A sense of peace settled over them, momentarily forgetting the danger lurking in the darkness. But then, from out of nowhere, a scream pierced the air. Cybele's eyes widened as she stood, her ears swiveling towards the sound. "Elysia," she whispered. "She's close." As dawn broke, Scholar Aidan and Beast Cybele stood over the dying embers of their campfire, preparing for the day ahead. The dense forest loomed around them, a maze of towering trees that seemed to swallow everything in its path. Aidan gripped his staff tightly, feeling its ancient power coursing through him as he focused on his human half. "We must move carefully," he advised Cybele, whose eyes flickered between their two forms, beast and human. "Elysia's cult might be nearby." Cybele growled in response, her claws digging into the earth as she shifted uneasily, longing to embrace her true nature, but understanding Aidan's concern. They set out into the forest, using their keen senses to navigate through the tangled undergrowth. The day wore on, and the pair encountered various obstacles: a treacherous river, a fallen tree that blocked their path, and numerous wild animals, all of which they managed to overcome with skill and determination. Yet the sense of danger grew stronger as shadows flickered in the distance, hinting at the presence of Elysia and her followers. As twilight approached, Aidan and Cybele stumbled upon a small clearing, their tired bodies yearning for rest. They made camp quickly, gathering firewood and setting up shelter with whatever resources they had found along the way. As night descended, they sat huddled together by the flickering flames, sharing stories of their past lives, attempting to bridge the gap between human and beast. A sudden howl pierced the silence, echoing through the forest, causing both Aidan and Cybele to tense. They knew that sound all too well. It was Elysia, taunting them from the darkness. "We cannot rest here," whispered Aidan, standing up and readying himself for battle. "Come, Cybele." Together, They ventured deeper into the forest, their senses straining to locate the source of the howl. As they approached a clearing, they found themselves surrounded by members of Elijah's cult, all armed with weapons and prepared for combat. Aiden and Cybele fought fiercely, using every ounce of strength and skill they possessed. Aiden channeled the power within him, summoning arcane energies to aid in their defense. Cybele shifted between human and beast form, adapting her tactics based on the situation at hand. The battle raged on, with neither side gaining an advantage. Yet as the struggle continued, Aiden began to feel a growing sense of unease, a feeling that he was not just fighting for survival, but also for something much more profound. He could feel the beast within him stirring, yearning to be set free and take control. In the heat of battle, Aiden lost his grip on his staff, allowing it to slip from his grasp. The weapon fell to the ground with a loud clatter, attracting the attention of Elijah herself. She stepped forward, her eyes locked onto the staff, and with a wicked grin, she reached out to claim it. "No!" cried Aiden, lunging at Alicia in an attempt to save his precious artifact. But it was too late. Alicia had already snatched the staff, holding it high above her head with a triumphant gleam in her eyes. With their weapon lost and their strength waning, Aiden and Cybele knew they could not continue fighting much longer. As Alicia prepared to deliver the final blow, a sudden burst of energy erupted from Cybele, causing the cultists to stumble back in shock. "Enough!" bellowed Cybele, her beast form fully taking hold. She lunged at Alicia, knocking the staff from her grasp and sending the high priestess flying backwards into a tree. The remaining cultists fled, sensing that they had met their match. Exhausted but victorious, Aiden and Cybele lay on the ground, catching their breath. "We must leave," panted Aiden, clutching his staff tightly. "Alicia will return with reinforcements." "Aye." Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. As twilight descended upon them, Aiden and Cybele trudged through the dense undergrowth, weary but unbowed. The thick foliage provided a degree of cover from their pursuers, allowing them to rest at last in a secluded clearing. Aiden tended to his wounds while Cybele surveyed their surroundings, her keen senses attuned for danger. "Do you ever wonder what happened to the world before?" Aiden asked, breaking the silence. "The one we knew as humans." Cybele's eyes flickered, and she gazed up at the canopy above them. "I remember fragments, chaos, darkness, a great awakening. That's what I fear," Aiden replied, wrapping a bandage around his arm. "We were not meant to be like this. We were scholars, explorers, builders. Now we are hunted, feared." Cybele growled softly in agreement. They shared an understanding of their plight. Both were outsiders in the world they once called home. As night fell, they built a small fire with flint and dry twigs. The flames danced between them like ethereal beings, casting flickering shadows on their faces as they sat side by side, silent companions amidst the wilderness. Suddenly, Aiden's eyes widened in alarm, and he reached for his staff, only to find it missing. Cybele immediately sensed the disturbance and rose, her body tensing. "We are not alone," Aiden whispered urgently. From the darkness came a chorus of hushed voices, their words spoken with an eerie rhythm. It was Elijah's cult, encircling them in the shadows. As dawn approached, the first rays of light filtered through the dense forest canopy, illuminating the secluded clearing where Scholar Aiden and Beast Cybele had spent the night. The air was thick with tension as they stood face to face, surrounded by members of High Priestess Elijah's cult. "You should have stayed dead," spat one of the cultists, his eyes filled with malice. Aiden, clutching his staff tightly, met the cultist's gaze. He had spent years studying ancient lore and knew that these beings posed a threat to both himself and Cybele. "You misunderstand us," he said calmly. "We seek only to understand our place in this new world." The cultists snickered, but Aiden could sense the unease among their ranks. They were uncertain of what they faced, and he knew that fear was his greatest ally in this moment. Suddenly, Cybele's eyes narrowed, and she raised her hand to silence the air around them. "There," she whispered, pointing into the dense undergrowth. Aiden followed her gaze and saw movement among the tree's more cultists, preparing for an ambush. Aiden gritted his teeth as he readied himself for battle. The first attack came suddenly, a barrage of arrows whizzing through the air. Cybele and Aiden dodged and parried, their years of training coming into play as they fought back with speed and precision. The cultists were relentless, but Aiden could sense that they were growing more nervous. They had underestimated him and Sybil. In the midst of the chaos, Aiden caught a glimpse of something in the distance, something familiar. He squinted, trying to focus through the haze of combat. It was his staff lying abandoned on the ground, just beyond the reach of the cultists. He gritted his teeth and fought with renewed determination, pushing back the cultists until he could seize his staff once more. With his power restored, Aiden unleashed a torrent of magic at the cultists, sending them stumbling back in shock. Sybil joined him, her own powers surging as she took down the remaining enemies with a fierce grace. As the battle ended, Aiden and Sybil stood together, their chests heaving from exertion. They had won this skirmish, but they knew that Alicia's cult would not give up so easily. "We must find shelter," Aiden said, looking around the clearing. "Somewhere where we can rest and plan our next move." "Yeah." Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. Aiden and Beast Sybil found themselves at the edge of a dense forest, weary from their battle with Alicia's cult. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that danced across the uneven ground. Ahead lay a secluded clearing where a small stream trickled through lush vegetation. Aiden limped along, clutching his staff tightly, his eyes scanning the dense undergrowth for any signs of danger. Sybil followed close behind, her keen senses alert to every sound and movement. Despite their shared exhaustion, neither spoke a word, each lost in thought as they navigated deeper into the forest. At last, they reached the clearing. The sight that greeted them was one of tranquility, dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves above, the gentle song of birds echoing from distant branches, and the soothing sound of water flowing over smooth stones. A feeling of safety enveloped them as they stepped into the clearing. Aiden collapsed onto a nearby flat rock, his body aching from their harrowing journey. Sybil knelt beside him, her eyes filled with concern. "Rest," she said softly, her voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. As Aiden closed his eyes, memories of his past life as a scholar flooded back to him. He recalled countless hours spent poring over ancient texts, deciphering cryptic runes and arcane symbols. His insatiable curiosity had led him down many paths, but none as perilous as this one. He opened his eyes, gazing around the clearing with newfound determination. "We cannot stay here," he said, rising to his feet. "Alicia's cult will not rest until they have us." Sybil nodded in agreement. "I sense danger nearby," she warned. "But we must find a way to survive." Aiden reached for the staff, feeling its power coursing through him. "We will," he said firmly. "Together, we can overcome anything." With renewed purpose, they began their search for resources. Dry twigs and flint were plentiful, allowing them to start a small fire in the clearing. They shared stories of their past lives, each revelation deepening their bond. Sybil spoke of her own struggles with her beastly nature, how she had spent centuries trapped within the crypt, yearning for freedom. As night fell, they huddled around the fire, watching as the flames danced and flickered. The forest seemed to close in around them, but they felt safe in each other's company. Unbeknownst to them, however, Alicia's cult was lurking nearby, their eyes glinting malevolently in the darkness. Aiden and Beast Sybil stood at the edge of the clearing, looking out onto the tranquil waters of the stream. The sun had set, casting an eerie glow over the water's surface. Aiden leaned heavily on his staff, his eyes following the ripples as they danced across the water. "We must rest," Aiden said after a long moment, breaking the silence that had settled between them. "I have not felt this weary since my transformation." Beast Sybil made a low growl in response, her eyes shifting to slits as she regarded him with suspicion. Despite their previous battle, Aiden felt an odd sense of familiarity from her, something he could not quite put his finger on. As they settled down near the stream, Aiden took stock of their surroundings. The clearing was secluded, hidden by dense undergrowth and towering trees. They had managed to evade Alicia's cult, but he knew that their enemies would be searching for them, eager to harness the power they possessed. "We must gather what we can," Aiden said, breaking the silence once more. "Firewood, food, and shelter." Beast Sybil seemed to understand him, moving quickly through the undergrowth with surprising grace. Aiden marveled at her speed and agility, recalling their earlier battle, where she had effortlessly dispatched several cultists with her claws. The thought of their enemy made his heart race. but he forced himself to focus on the task at hand. Together, they gathered flint and dry twigs for a fire, searching for edible plants as well. Aiden's knowledge of ancient lore proved invaluable, allowing them to identify several mushrooms that could be consumed safely. As night fell, they huddled close to the flames, sharing stories from their past lives. Aiden spoke of his studies at the academy and the fateful day he stumbled upon the crypt where Beast Sybil lay dormant. He told her of the ancient texts that revealed the secrets of the reawakened beings, and how he had been driven to explore further despite the warnings. Beast Sybil listened intently, her eyes gleaming with curiosity as Aiden spoke. When he finished, she hesitated for a moment before speaking in a voice unlike any he had heard before. "I remember. The darkness, the cold, the waiting." Her voice trailed off, and Aiden could sense the pain etched into every syllable. "I do not recall much of my past, only fragments." Aiden felt a pang of sympathy for her, reaching out to place a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We will uncover the truth together," he said softly. "Together, we will learn who we were and what we are now." Us. Echoes of the Abyssal Reawakening. As twilight enveloped the dense forest, Beast Sybil and Scholar Aiden found solace within a secluded clearing nestled between towering trees. The air was heavy with humidity as they sat near a small stream, Aiden cradling his staff tightly. Beast Sybil's eyes followed the water's gentle flow, her mind still reeling from fragments of memories that surfaced during their conversation. "You spoke of your past," she mused softly. "I wish to understand my own." Scholar Aiden glanced at her, his gaze softening. "Of course, Sybil. We must uncover our shared history together." He offered a reassuring smile. "We'll find answers." As they prepared for the night ahead, the forest seemed more alive than ever. They gathered flint and dry twigs, their movements hushed as if not to disturb the creatures of the night. The air was thick with tension, but there was also a sense of camaraderie between them. Aiden's eyes flickered towards the darker parts of the forest, his curiosity piqued by the unknown. "We should be cautious," he warned, his voice barely audible. "Elysia's cult may still be out there." Beast Sybil nodded, her ears perked as she listened to the night sounds around them. A twig snapped, and they both tensed, their senses heightened. But it was only a small animal scurrying through the undergrowth. They settled back down, sharing a brief moment of relief. Despite the danger that lurked outside, there was something peaceful about this secluded clearing. As night fell and stars began to twinkle above them, they closed their eyes, hoping for answers in their dreams. But as darkness enveloped them, the forest seemed to close in, its shadows whispering secrets only they could hear. A chill ran down Scholar Aiden's spine as he felt the weight of their shared destiny pressing upon him. He knew that their journey was far from over and that danger still lurked just beyond the edge of the clearing. In the dim light of twilight, Aiden stood near the stream, studying its surface. He traced patterns etched by centuries of wind-blown pebbles, seeking answers that might explain their existence. Sybil approached him cautiously, her eyes reflecting the flickering firelight from their makeshift camp. "Do you think we'll ever learn what happened to us?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with hope. Aiden looked up at her, his gaze heavy with the burden of knowledge he carried. "I believe so, Sybil. I trust our shared past holds many secrets waiting to be uncovered." He reached out and gently placed a hand on her shoulder, offering comfort. "But what if we never find the truth?" she whispered. Aiden squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. "Then we'll keep searching, together. We can face whatever challenges come our way as long as we stand united." As the sky turned a deep shade of indigo, they shared a moment of silence before settling down for the night. A chill breeze rustled through the dense undergrowth surrounding their secluded clearing, making them shiver. The fire crackled and popped, casting dancing shadows across their faces. In the pre-dawn hours, Sybil stirred from her slumber. She noticed a faint glow emanating from one of Aiden's staff's runes. Intrigued, she woke him and pointed it out. Together, they examined the ancient artifact, its power pulsing in rhythm with their heartbeats. "Do you think this could hold clues to our origins?" Sybil asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Aiden nodded thoughtfully. "It's possible. Let us study it further when the sun rises and we can see more clearly." As dawn broke, they set about collecting flint and dry twigs, preparing to spend another day in this strange, enchanted forest. They knew that danger was always lurking just beyond their sight, but together, they faced each new challenge with determination and courage. Their bond grew stronger as the days passed, forging a connection that transcended their earthly forms. However, they couldn't shake the feeling that Elysia would return, seeking to claim them for her cult's sinister purposes. They knew they would have to be vigilant and resourceful if they hoped to evade capture or uncover the truth about themselves. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting golden rays through the dense canopy above, Aiden felt a renewed sense of purpose. He turned to Sybil, his gaze filled with determination. "We will find answers, Sybil. I promise you." Sybil smiled, her eyes sparkling with hope and trust. Together, she whispered, reaching out to take his hand. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. Aiden and Sybil navigated the dense undergrowth, their senses heightened in search of any signs of Elysia or her cultists. The forest seemed alive with the whispers of ancient magic, a symphony of unseen forces that both enthralled and terrified them. "Sybil," Aiden murmured, breaking through the silence, "the runes on my staff. I think they're reacting to this enchanted forest." She nodded, her eyes scanning their surroundings warily. "We should be cautious, Aiden. We know not what lurks within these woods." As they ventured deeper into the forest, they stumbled upon a small clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center lay an ancient stone pedestal with intricate carvings etched into its surface. Sybil approached it cautiously, her fingers tracing the designs while Aiden stood watch. "These symbols are familiar," she murmured, "but I cannot place them." Suddenly, a rustling in the undergrowth made them both jump. They exchanged nervous glances before turning to face the source. A group of cloaked figures emerged, their faces obscured by hoods and masks. Aiden's heart pounded as he recognized the insignia on their garments. Elysia's cult. "Aiden," Elysia's voice cut through the air, her eyes cold and calculating behind her mask. "You have been evading us long enough." "Elysia," Aiden replied, his tone steady despite his fear. "We mean you no harm. We only seek to understand our place in this world." She chuckled humorously. "Your place is as part of my cult, Aiden, and you will join us, whether you want to or not." Aiden gritted his teeth, gripping the staff tightly. "We will never join your twisted cause. We'll protect ourselves and our secrets with our lives." As Elysia and her followers closed in around them, Aiden and Sybil stood back to back, their eyes locked on the encroaching cultists. They knew they were outnumbered, but they had each other and the unyielding will to survive. The forest seemed to close in around them as the moonlit clearing was swallowed by shadows. But Aiden and Sybil fought with everything they had, refusing to let Elysia claim them for her own twisted purposes. As the battle raged on, they could feel the weight of destiny pressing down upon them, whispering secrets long lost in time. Their bond grew stronger as they struggled against Elysia's cult, their combined power surging through the air like a living thing. With every blow struck, their resolve hardened, and they fought on, determined to protect their secrets and forge a future together. Aiden grunted as he hacked through the dense undergrowth, his staff with runes glowing faintly in the dim light of the forest canopy. Sweat dripped down his face as his breath came in ragged gasps. Sybil padded silently at his side, eyes scanning their surroundings for signs of danger. The pair had barely rested since their last encounter with Elysia's cult, and the tension in the air was palpable. They knew they couldn't outrun their pursuers forever. As they reached a small stream, Aiden paused, turning to Sybil with an anxious expression. "We can't keep going like this," he said. "We need food and rest. But we also have to be careful not to track Elysia or her followers." Sybil nodded, her eyes flashing with determination. Together they scouted the area for a suitable campsite, eventually settling on a secluded clearing hidden among the trees. They gathered dry twigs and flint from nearby, building a small fire to cook what little food they had left. As night fell, Aiden felt a strange sense of unease. He kept glancing over his shoulder, half expecting Elysia or her cultists to appear at any moment. Sybil seemed to sense his fear and placed a comforting paw on his shoulder. "You do not have to worry," she whispered. "I will protect you." Aiden smiled weakly, grateful for the reassurance. The night passed with no sign of danger, but as dawn broke they knew they couldn't stay in one place for long. They packed up their belongings and continued onward, moving deeper into the heart of the enchanted forest. As they traveled, Aiden couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. He kept his senses alert, listening for any signs of movement. Suddenly, a rustling sound nearby caused him to freeze in terror. Sybil tensed at his side, her ears perked up as she scanned their surroundings. A moment later, a group of cultists emerged from the trees, led by Alicia herself. Aiden's heart raced as he raised his staff defensively, bracing himself for battle. Sybil growled low in her throat, baring her teeth as she prepared to defend her companion. "We've been expecting you," Alicia sneered. "Now it's time for you to join us." There. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening, as the sun dipped below the tree line, casting eerie shadows across the enchanted forest. Aiden and beast Sybil huddled together in the secluded clearing. Their hearts raced as they listened to the rustle of leaves and the distant whispers carried by the wind. It seemed as if the entire forest was holding its breath, waiting for their next move. Aiden's staff with its runes glowed faintly in the gloom, a constant reminder of the danger lurking nearby. He felt a pang of fear at the thought that High Priestess Elysia and her cult might have been watching them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sybil's eyes were wide and full of curiosity as she gazed into the darkness, her form shifting subtly with each breath. The transformation was becoming more frequent now, and Aiden couldn't shake the feeling that it was only a matter of time before she fully embraced her beastly nature. "Sybil," Aiden whispered, his voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. "I know you are different since waking up in this world. I can see it in your eyes." He paused, looking into Sybil's gaze, trying to convey his concern without causing alarm. "But we must be careful. Elysia will not hesitate to exploit any weaknesses she finds within us." Sybil looked away, her features softening as she nodded slowly. "I understand, Aiden," she replied in a hushed tone, "but I cannot help my changes. They are a part of me now." A sudden commotion broke the silence, and they both tensed, ready to flee at a moment's notice. As they listened, the sounds grew louder, and Aiden felt his heartbeat quicken. He knew it was time to confront their enemies. Grabbing his staff, he stood up, offering a hand to Sybil. "We cannot hide any longer," he said, determination etched across his face. "We must defend ourselves." Together, they stepped out into the darkness, ready to meet Elysia and her cult head-on. As they moved deeper into the forest, the sounds of their pursuers grew nearer, and Aiden could feel the tension building within him. He clutched the staff tightly, focusing on his knowledge of ancient lore and the spells that might give them an advantage in this fight. Ahead, a group of cultists emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing with malice as they caught sight of Aiden and Sybil. "There you are," one shouted, brandishing a wicked-looking dagger. "We've been tracking you for days." Aiden raised his staff, calling upon the ancient power within him to protect them. As he did so, a wave of energy surged through him, illuminating the clearing and causing the cultists to recoil in shock. Sybil growled lowly, her beastly nature taking over as she lunged at the cultists, tearing into their ranks. Aiden fought alongside her, his staff crackling with energy as he cast spells that sent the cultists running for cover. He could feel the weight of their malicious intent, but he refused to let fear cloud his judgment. Instead, he focused on the task at hand: survival. As the battle raged on, Aiden and Sybil fought with a ferocity born from desperation. They were outnumbered, but they refused to back down. As the last cultist fell, Aiden collapsed to his knees, exhausted and battered but alive. He looked over at Sybil, who was panting heavily but otherwise unharmed. "We did it," he whispered, a sense of relief washing over him. But even as they caught their breaths, they knew that this was far from the end. Elysia and her cult would not give up so easily. They had to keep moving, to stay one step ahead if they wanted to survive. As night turned to dawn, Aiden and Sybil began their journey deeper into the enchanted forest, determined to uncover the truth about their origins and the world around them. In the weeks that followed, Aiden and Sybil encountered more of Elysia's cult, each time emerging victorious, but always on the run. They learned to rely on one another, forming a bond that transcended the boundaries between human and beast. As they journeyed deeper into the forest, They discovered ancient ruins and artifacts that hinted at the world's forgotten history, and Aiden found himself drawn further into the mystery of their own existence. One day, as they rested near a small stream, Aiden noticed something unusual about Sybil. Her eyes seemed to glow brighter than ever before, and her shifts between human and beast were becoming more frequent. "Sybil," he said, concern creeping into his voice. "You're changing again." Sybil looked at him, a mixture of fear and curiosity in her gaze. "I don't know what is happening to me, Aiden," she admitted softly, "but I know that it is part of who I am now." Aiden reached out a hand to her, offering comfort and support. "We will find answers, Sybil," he said determinedly. "Together, we can uncover the truth about our past and our place in this world." And so they continued their journey, driven by curiosity, fear, and an unshakable determination to survive against all odds. As they navigated the enchanted forest, they faced countless challenges, but through it all, Aiden and Sybil remained steadfast in their quest for answers, united by a bond that transcended the boundaries between human and beast. Aiden and Sybil crept through the dense undergrowth of the enchanted forest, their eyes locked on the secluded clearing up ahead. The air was thick with magic, a palpable force that seemed to pulse in time with their heartbeats. They moved cautiously, wary of any lurking dangers that might spring out at them. Suddenly, Sybil's ears twitched, her eyes widening as she crouched low and signaled for Aiden to do the same. He followed suit, pressing himself against a tree trunk and peering around it towards the clearing. 5 figures stood in the center of the clearing, their hooded robes billowing slightly in the breeze. A 6th figure approached them, her long, flowing cloak swishing behind her as she spoke to the others. With each word, Aiden felt a chill run down his spine. They had been found. High Priestess Elysia turned towards them and raised a hand. "Scholar Aiden," she called, her voice cold and commanding. "I have been searching for you." Her eyes flicked to Sybil before returning to Aiden. "We have much to discuss." Aiden hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. What did she want from them? He glanced at Sybil, who returned a silent nod of determination. Together, they stepped out from their hiding place, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As they approached the cultists, Aiden noticed something strange about Elysia's eyes. They seemed to glow faintly with an eerie light that made his skin crawl. He shuddered, his heart pounding in his chest, as he wondered what other secrets this enigmatic woman held. "You should have stayed hidden," Elysia said, her voice dripping with disdain. "But now that you are here, perhaps I can show you the true purpose of your existence." Aiden opened his mouth to reply, but before he could speak, Sybil let out a low growl and stepped protectively in front of him. The tension between the two groups was palpable, as if they stood on the precipice of a storm. Elysia raised an eyebrow at Sybil's defiance, her lips curling into a smirk. "You are a foolish beast," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "But I can see that you are not without potential." Aiden felt his anger rising, but he held himself in check, knowing that this was not the time for rash decisions. He focused instead on the runes carved into his staff, feeling their power coursing through him. He would need every ounce of it to survive this encounter. Elysia turned back to Aiden, her voice softer now. "You have been hiding from us for far too long, Scholar," she said. "It's time you come with me." Aiden hesitated, his eyes locked on the High Priestess as he weighed his options. He knew that resisting would only lead to violence, but he also knew that giving in could mean surrendering everything they had fought for. In the end, it was Sybil who made the decision for him. With a low growl, she lunged at Elysia, her claws outstretched. The cultists scattered, shouting and brandishing weapons as Aiden stumbled back in shock. The fight that followed was fierce and brutal, with both sides determined to emerge victorious. Aiden fought with everything he had, using every trick of combat and magic he knew to fend off the cultists. Sybil proved a formidable ally, her newfound strength and agility making them a force to be reckoned with. As the battle raged on, Aiden couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. He had always been a scholar, a man of knowledge and wisdom, not a warrior. But now he found himself in the thick of it, fighting for his life and Sybil's. In the end, they emerged victorious, battered and bruised but still standing. As they caught their breath, Aiden couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. They had fought off Alicia's cult, but he knew that this was far from over. The enigmatic high priestess would not give up so easily. With a weary glance at Sybil, Aiden realized that they had no choice but to press on. He tightened his grip on his staff and steeled himself for the challenges that lay ahead. They had come too far to turn back now. As the sun set over the enchanted forest, casting long shadows across the clearing, Aiden knew that their journey was only beginning. They would have to find a way to evade Alicia and her cult, uncovering the truth about their past and their place in this strange, magical world. Together, they would face whatever came their way, united by an unbreakable bond forged in fire and blood, and perhaps, in time, they might even find a way to turn the tide against the cosmic threat that loomed over them all. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. Aiden and Sybil made their way through the dense undergrowth of the enchanted forest, the air thick with magic and the scent of decaying foliage. Their journey had led them to a secluded clearing hidden among the trees. A small stream trickled nearby, providing them with water and nourishment. Aiden knelt beside the stream, dipping his staff into its cool waters before holding it up to the sun's rays that filtered through the canopy above. The runes etched on the staff glowed faintly, illuminating their temporary shelter. He studied them with a furrowed brow, trying to decipher what they meant. Aiden, Sybil said, her voice echoing eerily in the stillness of the forest. You focus too much on the past. We must concern ourselves with the present. Sybil stepped closer, her eyes locked on his as he looked up from the staff. In that moment, Aiden felt a strange connection to her, a bond that transcended their differences and reminded him of what they shared. He nodded reluctantly, acknowledging her wisdom. As they sat by the stream, Sybil transformed into a more humanoid form, her features softening and becoming less monstrous. Her eyes held a gentle warmth that Aiden had never seen before. She reached out tentatively and took his hand in hers, offering him comfort amidst the chaos of their world. Their moment was interrupted by the sound of twigs snapping nearby. Sybil tensed, her grip tightening on Aiden's hand. The two exchanged a glance, sensing danger lurking close by. Aiden held his staff up protectively as they prepared to defend themselves against whatever might emerge from the forest. A group of cultists appeared, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent. They were led by High Priestess Alicia herself, her robes billowing around her as she stepped forward. Her smile was cold and calculating. "Scholar Aiden," she hissed, "I have been tracking you and your beastly companion for far too long. You will join us or die." Aiden's grip on his staff tightened, determination flashing across his face. He stood tall, ready to face Alicia and her cultists head-on. Sybil growled protectively, her own desire to fight evident in her posture. The battle that ensued was fierce and brutal, but Aiden and Sybil refused to back down. They fought with all their might, using every ounce of knowledge and strength they possessed. The cultists were relentless, but so were the pair. In the end, it was Sybil who dealt the final blow, impaling Alicia through the chest with her claws. Aiden watched as Alicia's body crumpled to the ground, defeated. The remaining cultists fled, knowing they had no chance against Sybil's power. Aiden and Sybil stood together in the aftermath, panting heavily from exhaustion. They exchanged a look, both of them knowing that this was only the beginning. Their journey was far from over, but they were stronger now, united by their shared experiences and determination to survive against all odds. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the clearing. Aiden knelt beside the stream once more, holding his staff up to the dying light. The runes glowed brightly, illuminating the scene before them. He felt a sense of peace wash over him as he stared at the enchanted symbols, knowing that they were part of something greater than themselves, a destiny that would shape the fate of their world. Together, Aiden and Sybil began to walk deeper into the enchanted forest, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They knew that their path would not be easy, but they also knew they could no longer turn back. Their bond had grown stronger through their trials, and they were more determined than ever to uncover the truth about their existence. In the dense undergrowth of the enchanted forest, Scholar Aiden and Beast Sybil rested near a small stream, recovering from their latest encounter with High Priestess Alicia's cultists. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow on the forest floor as they shared a meal of roasted fish caught earlier in the day. Aiden, exhausted but still filled with curiosity, glanced at Sybil. The runes on your staff. I've never seen anything like it before, he said, tracing his fingers along the intricate carvings. Sybil's eyes flickered to Aiden, her expression unreadable. You are a scholar, she replied, her voice barely audible over the gentle sound of the water flowing nearby. What do you seek from these symbols? Aiden sighed and closed his eyes, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. I want to understand our origins, he admitted, opening them again to meet Sybil's gaze. Why were we created? Why are we hunted by Elijah and her cultists? Sybil remained silent for several moments before responding. It is a question I have asked myself many times. But our answers may not be found in this world alone. Their conversation was interrupted as the sound of rustling leaves grew louder. Aiden tensed, his eyes scanning the forest around them. Cultists, he whispered, gripping his staff tightly. Sybil stood, baring her fangs, and the two prepared for battle. The cultists emerged from the undergrowth, their eyes glowing with malice. Aiden fought with the skill of a seasoned warrior, using his knowledge of ancient lore to counter their attacks. Sybil matched him blow for blow, her newfound strength proving invaluable against their enemies. As the fight raged on, Sybil sensed a presence approaching from behind them. She spun around, knocking aside a cultist who had sneaked up unnoticed, and revealing another figure cloaked in darkness. The figure stepped forward, revealing itself to be none other than Alicia herself. With a triumphant grin, she raised her hand, casting a powerful spell that sent Aiden flying back into the stream. He stumbled out of the water, coughing and sputtering. Sybil fought on, but against Alicia's growing power, she struggled to hold her ground. Aiden recovered, grabbing a flint from his pack and striking it against a dry twig, creating a spark that ignited into flame. He hurled the burning piece of wood towards Alicia, who let out an enraged roar as it struck her cloak, setting it ablaze. Seizing the opportunity, Sybil leapt forward and tackled Alicia to the ground. The two struggled, their powers clashing in a bright flash of light. As the smoke cleared, Alicia lay unconscious, defeated by her own disciple. With a sigh of relief, Aiden and Sybil stood over the body of their enemy, knowing that they had won another battle. But as the darkness closed in around them once more, they knew that their journey was far from over. The truth about their existence remained elusive, and Alicia's cult would not be defeated so easily. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening, Aiden gazed into the flickering flames as twilight descended upon the dense forest around him. Sybil sat nearby, her eyes fixed on a staff that bore intricate runes and carvings. The air was thick with tension. They had spent days evading Alicia's cultists, learning to work together and fend off their pursuers. These symbols, Sybil murmured, tracing the runes with a gentle finger. I don't remember what they mean. Aiden leaned closer, squinting at the staff in the dim firelight. They could be key to understanding our origins. He reached for a dry twig and flint nearby, striking sparks to ignite another flame for better illumination. I have researched countless texts about ancient lore, Aiden said as he examined the staff, but none mention beings like us. Sybil looked at him with curiosity. What do you think we are, scholar? Aiden sighed. I cannot say for certain, but I believe we are part of some experiment or ritual conducted by a long-lost civilization. He paused before continuing. The staff may hold the answers we seek. They spent hours poring over the artifact, deciphering runes and debating their meanings. Aiden was struck with an idea. We must find a quiet, secluded place to study this staff in peace. Sybil nodded, standing up to stretch her limbs. Lead on, scholar. They ventured deeper into the forest, following the small stream that wound through the undergrowth. After navigating dense thickets, they finally reached a clearing hidden among the trees. Aiden set the staff upon an ancient stone pedestal at the center of the secluded spot, and they sat down cross-legged on either side. With renewed focus, they began their work. As the night wore on, a faint rustling echoed through the forest. Aiden tensed, senses heightened by his beastly nature. Sybil glanced at him, sensing his unease. He signaled for her to stay quiet as he listened intently. The sound grew louder, and soon a group of cultists emerged from the shadows. Aiden gripped his staff tightly, ready to defend themselves if necessary. Sybil stood protectively beside him, eyes never leaving the approaching figures. The cultists stopped abruptly at the edge of the clearing, Alicia among them. Elysia's gaze locked onto Aiden and Cybele. I have been searching for you, she said coldly. You will join us or suffer the consequences. Aiden stood up, his eyes flashing with determination. We will never join your cult, Elysia, he spat out. Your darkness has no place in this world. Elysia snarled, unleashing a torrent of dark energy. Cybele leapt into action, shielding Aiden and deflecting the attack. The battle raged on, leaving the forest ringing with shouts, growls, and the crackling of flames. Aiden and Cybele fought tirelessly, their bond growing stronger as they protected each other. As the last cultist fell, Elysia's cloak was ablaze, her power spent. Aiden stepped forward, grabbing her by the collar and searing it further with fire. You will never trouble us again, he growled, glaring into Elysia's eyes. She hissed at him before collapsing unconscious, defeated. With their enemy incapacitated, they stood guard over her until dawn broke, vowing to continue their search for answers and uncover the truth about who they truly were. Days passed as Aiden and Cybele carefully nursed Elysia back to consciousness within the secluded clearing, hidden among the trees. A small stream trickled nearby, providing them with water and sustenance. The dense undergrowth provided ample cover from the world outside, but it also posed its own threats, predators lurking in the shadows, hungry for their flesh. Aiden studied Elysia's wounds, marveling at the depth of her injuries. He was certain that she would have died if not for Cybele's quick thinking and fierce protection during their battle against the cultists. Though Cybele herself bore scars from the encounter, her resilience never wavered. Cybele stood sentinel outside their makeshift shelter, listening intently for any signs of danger. The forest seemed eerily still, but she knew that it was only a matter of time before they were found by Elysia's cultists again. One evening, as dusk settled over the enchanted forest, Aiden approached Cybele. We must find a way to protect ourselves more effectively, he said, gripping his staff tightly. Our enemies will come for us. Cybele nodded in agreement, her eyes glinting with determination. They needed answers about their origins, their powers, and the darkness that seemed to be growing within their world. With renewed resolve, they decided to delve deeper into the secrets of the staff. In the small stream, they discovered a collection of flint and dry twigs, which Cybele used to craft a crude fire. Aiden studied the staff, tracing the intricate runes with his fingers. He began to feel an inexplicable connection to it, one that seemed to be growing stronger by the day. As they sat by the fire, Aiden shared his theories about the staff and their origins. I believe this staff is a key, he said, holding it aloft, but I don't know how to unlock its secrets. Cybele stared at the staff, feeling a strange energy pulsing from it. Suddenly she felt a surge of power coursing through her veins, and she knew that she was meant to hold it. It chose me, she whispered. Aiden looked at Cybele, his eyes wide with disbelief. What do you mean? He asked, gripping the staff tightly. Cybele hesitated for a moment before speaking. I think this staff was made for us, for beings like us, she said. It's trying to awaken something inside of us. Aiden felt a chill run down his spine as he considered her words. He knew that the staff had been imbued with ancient magic, and it was possible that it could grant them unimaginable power. But at what cost? As they sat by the fire, debating their next move, they felt a sense of unease settling over them. They were no longer just humans, they were something more. And as powerful as that might be, it also made them targets for those who sought to harness their powers. With dawn breaking, Aiden and Cybele knew that they couldn't stay in the clearing forever. They needed answers, and they would have to face Elysia and her cult again if they wanted to find them. As they prepared to leave, Aiden looked at Cybele, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for her friendship and loyalty. We will face whatever comes together, he said, offering her a small smile. Cybele took his hand in hers, squeezing it tightly. Whatever happens, we'll face it as one, she replied, determination shining in her eyes. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. As twilight descended upon the enchanted forest, a sense of unease pervaded the clearing where Aiden, Cybele, and Elysia recuperated. The air was thick with tension as they huddled around a crackling fire, the flames casting eerie shadows on their faces. We should rest here for now, Aiden suggested cautiously, glancing at Cybele, who nodded in agreement. But we must be ready to move if trouble comes. Alicia remained silent, her eyes narrowed and wary. The staff lay beside her, its intricate carvings shimmering faintly in the dim light. Suddenly, a rustling sound echoed through the undergrowth nearby, sending a shiver down Aiden's spine. He stood up slowly, tightening his grip on his own staff as he stepped towards the source of the noise. Sybil and Alicia followed close behind. As they approached the dense forest, they found themselves face to face with a group of cloaked figures. Aiden recognized them immediately, followers of High Priestess Alicia. He took a deep breath, ready for conflict. "I see you've made it," Alicia sneered from behind her cultists, her eyes cold and calculating. "I didn't think you would be so foolish as to stay in this place." Aiden steeled himself, his heart racing. The tension between them was palpable. "You may have defeated my followers, but I will not let you escape," Alicia continued ominously, her voice dripping with malice. "I need the power that lies within both of you." In the heart of an ancient forest, Aiden stood before Sybil, his staff glowing with arcane power in the dim light of the moon. Alicia's cultists lurked within the shadows, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. As he glanced at Sybil, her eyes held a fierce determination that mirrored his own. "We must be ready," Aiden whispered. "For them and for whatever lies beyond this forest." A sudden gust of wind swept through the trees, scattering leaves like ashes in the air, and the cultists emerged from their hiding places, surrounding Aiden and Sybil. They were a chilling sight to behold, cloaked in dark robes adorned with forbidden symbols. Their eyes held malice and greed. "You have trespassed upon sacred ground," hissed one of the cultists, stepping forward. "Hand over your staffs, or pay the price." Aiden's grip on his own staff tightened as he remembered the power it contained, the potential to change their lives forever. Sybil growled low in her throat, revealing a primal instinct that hinted at her true nature. "We will not surrender," Aiden said firmly, raising his staff. "You have no claim on our destiny." The cultists charged, their robes swirling like dark tendrils around them. Sybil lunged forward, teeth bared and claws extended, her eyes blazing with fury as she fought off several attackers at once. Aiden fought alongside her, his staff crackling with magic as he battled the cultists who sought to claim their power. They fought through the night, their strength waning, but refusing to yield. The battle raged on, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. As dawn broke, they found themselves standing alone among the fallen bodies of Alicia's followers. Exhausted and battered, Aiden and Sybil leaned against each other, panting for breath. "We must leave this place," Aiden said, his voice barely audible. "They will not stop until we are defeated." Echoes of the Abyssal Reawakening. In the dense undergrowth of the forest, Aiden and Sybil struggled to walk on weakened legs, their staffs heavy with the weight of their ordeal. As twilight fell, they stumbled upon a secluded clearing hidden among the trees, a small stream babbling nearby. The water seemed pure and inviting, but as they approached, Aiden noticed something peculiar about it. "Sybil," he whispered, "look at this." He pointed to the water's edge where a glowing mark etched itself into the ground. It was an ancient rune, one he recognized from his studies. It can't be." Sybil looked on in wonder as the rune pulsed with energy, its glow illuminating their faces. A sense of foreboding washed over them both. "What does it mean?" Sybil asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It means that we are not alone," Aiden replied grimly. "We've been found." They exchanged anxious glances as the rune began to fade, leaving no trace of its presence. Aiden took a deep breath, reaching for his staff. "We must move now, Sybil. We can't stay here." The pair hurriedly drank from the stream before making their way deeper into the forest, the sounds of pursuit growing louder with each passing moment. As they ventured further, Aiden found himself drawn to the enchanted forest ahead, a place he had only read about in ancient texts. The air felt charged with energy, and Sybil seemed to sense it as well. As they reached the ancient stone pedestal in the center of the clearing, they were met by a group of Alicia's cultists. Aiden gripped his staff tighter, readying himself for battle as the cultists closed in around them. Sybil, however, hesitated. "No," she said, stepping between Aiden and the cultists. "We will not fight here." Aiden stared at her in shock as Alicia stepped forward, a wicked smile on her face. "You are mistaken, reawakened one," she sneered. "This is your destiny to serve us." Sibyl's eyes flashed with anger, and for the first time since they had met, Aiden saw a spark of fear in her gaze. "We will not be controlled," she declared, standing tall. Elysia laughed, her cultists closing in around them. "Very well," she said, raising her hand. "Let this be the beginning of your final lesson." Aiden and Sybil braced themselves as the battle began, their staffs crackling with energy as they fought to protect each other and escape from Elysia's grasp. The air was thick with magic, and the forest seemed to tremble beneath them as they clashed with the cultists. As the fight raged on, Aiden felt a strange sensation coursing through him, something he couldn't quite understand. He glanced at Sybil, who met his gaze with determination in her eyes. Together they fought on, their staffs glowing brighter with each passing moment. And though they were outnumbered and weary, they refused to give up, for deep within them both burned a fire that would not be extinguished so easily. They would fight for their freedom, no matter the cost. The battle continued, the sounds of combat echoing through the forest as Aiden and Sybil pushed against Elysia's cultists. The air grew thick with magic, the energy pulsating around them like a living thing. As they fought on, Aiden began to feel a strange sensation coursing through him, something he couldn't quite understand. Suddenly, Sybil let out a cry of pain as she was knocked to the ground. Aiden roared with rage, charging forward to defend her. He struck down several cultists, his staff glowing brighter than ever before. But Elysia stood her ground, a cold smile on her face. "You are strong," she said, "but you cannot win." Aiden gritted his teeth, determination burning in his eyes. "We will not be controlled," he growled. The battle continued, the air around them crackling with energy as they fought for their lives. And though they were outnumbered and weary, Aiden and Sybil refused to give up, for deep within them both burned a fire that would not be extinguished so easily. They would fight for their freedom, no matter the cost. As the last cultist fell, Aiden turned to find Sybil standing beside him, her staff glowing faintly in her hands. He reached out to her, and she stepped into his embrace, their hearts beating together as they caught their breath. "We did it," he whispered, relief washing over him. Sybil nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "We did." As the forest returned to silence, Aiden felt a strange sensation coursing through him once more. He looked down at his staff, seeing that it had changed. Its carvings now glowed with an intensity he'd never seen before. "What is happening to me?" he asked Sybil, fear creeping into his voice. Sybil took a deep breath, her eyes filled with concern. "I don't know," she said quietly. "But we must find out." They stood there for a moment, looking at each other, before Aiden wrapped an arm around Sybil's shoulders. "We will face whatever comes together," he promised. Together, they left the clearing, their hearts heavy but their spirits strong as they ventured deeper into the enchanted forest, determined to uncover the truth about their powers and their destinies. For though they were unsure of what lay ahead, they knew that they would face it side by side, bound together by the fire that burned within them both. Scholar Aiden and Beast Sybil walked cautiously through the dense undergrowth of the forest. Ahead lay a secluded clearing, its trees parting to reveal a small stream trickling between mossy stones. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decayed foliage, yet something about this place felt different. Sybil's keen senses picked up on it first. "There's magic here," she murmured, her voice barely audible above the wind rustling through the branches. Aiden nodded, adjusting his staff in his hands. The runes etched into its surface glowed faintly as he concentrated, feeling the ancient energies that coursed through the forest. "We should be careful," he warned. "Whatever is here may not be friendly." As they approached the clearing, they noticed the ground was covered with flint and dry twigs, arranged in a circle around an ancient stone pedestal. A small fire burned at its center, flickering eerily as it cast dancing shadows across their faces. "What do you think this is?" Aiden asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sybil shrugged. "I don't know, but I have a feeling we should proceed with caution." As they stepped into the circle, the fire flared brighter, casting an eerie light across the clearing. They could see that the pedestal was adorned with intricate carvings of beasts and ancient runes. It seemed to hum with power. Before Aiden could react, a sudden gust of wind whipped through the clearing, extinguishing the fire. The air grew heavy, and they felt an oppressive presence closing in around them. Elysia, Sybil hissed, her eyes narrowing as she sensed the cultists approach. They must have followed us. Aiden gripped his staff tighter, feeling its power surge through him as he prepared to defend himself and Sybil against the incoming assault. But before the first cultist could attack, a familiar voice rang out. "I have been watching you," High Priestess Alicia said, stepping out from behind a tree. She wore her cult's signature white robes, adorned with symbols of power and domination. Her eyes glinted malevolently as she regarded Aiden and Sybil. "You cannot hide here." Aiden clenched his teeth, feeling the anger surging within him. "We're not hiding," he spat. "We've come to learn about our pasts just like you." Alicia laughed coldly. "Your past is nothing but a tool for me to wield. I will use it to bring order to this chaotic world." As the battle lines were drawn, Aiden and Sybil braced themselves, feeling the weight of their newfound powers coursing through them. They knew they could not afford to underestimate Elysia and her cultists, but they also knew they had no choice. Their destinies lay in the balance, and they would do whatever it took to protect each other and uncover the truth about their origins. The air crackled with magic as the three sides prepared for battle. Aiden felt his staff pulse with energy, its runes glowing brightly as he focused on channeling the ancient forces that flowed through him. Sybil, too, seemed to have grown stronger since their last encounter, her first standing on end as she bared her teeth in a snarl of defiance. As the battle raged, Aiden knew they could not afford to be careless. He fought with all his might, feeling the power of his staff course through him as he unleashed wave after wave of ancient magic against Elysia and her cultists. Sybil fought fiercely by his side, her claws tearing through robes and flesh alike as she defended their position. But even as they pressed their advantage, Aiden could sense that something was wrong. The air around them seemed to grow colder, the ground beneath their feet trembling as if in response to some hidden force. He knew they were not alone here. Something else watched, waiting for its chance to strike. As the battle reached its climax, a sudden roar echoed through the forest. A massive beast burst from the undergrowth, towering over both sides as it surveyed the scene before it with cold, unblinking eyes. Its scales shimmered like obsidian, and its jaws were filled with sharp teeth that gleamed menacingly in the dim light. The cultists hesitated, their eyes wide with fear as they regarded the monstrous creature. Elysia, however, seemed undaunted. "This is a sign," she declared, her voice ringing out above the chaos. "The ancient prophecy foretold that we would face a great beast in our quest for power. This must be it." Aiden felt his heart sink as he realized the truth. The cult had been using him and Sybil all along, manipulating them to draw out this beast so they could harness its powers for themselves. He clenched his jaw, feeling rage surging through him as he focused on protecting Sybil from both Elysia and the beast. The battle raged on, with Aiden and Sybil fighting tooth and nail to hold their own against the combined might of the cultists and the beast. But they were growing weaker, feeling the weight of their newfound powers draining from them as they struggled to keep up the fight. In the end, it was Sybil who made the crucial blow. She lunged at Elysia, her claws tearing through the High Priestess's robes and leaving deep gashes in her flesh. As Elysia fell to the ground, the beast turned its attention to the remaining cultists, tearing them apart with brutal efficiency. When the dust settled, Aiden and Sybil stood alone in the clearing, their bodies battered and bruised from the fight. The beast regarded them coldly for a moment before turning and disappearing back into the undergrowth. "We cannot rest here," Aiden said, his voice barely audible above the sound of his ragged breathing. "We must find somewhere safe to regroup." Sybil nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I agree. We will continue our search for answers, but we cannot trust anyone else until we know the truth about ourselves and this world." As they left the clearing, Aiden felt a renewed sense of purpose coursing through him. He knew that their journey was far from over, but he also knew that he had found a partner in Sybil who would stand by his side, no matter what challenges lay ahead. And though the path before them was shrouded in darkness and uncertainty, he felt a strange sense of hope for the first time since the world around him began to crumble. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. The forest was dense and oppressive as Aiden and Sybil moved cautiously through its depths. The wounds from their encounter with Elysia's cult still fresh, they were both weary, but determined to find sanctuary before nightfall. Suddenly, the undergrowth parted, revealing a small stream trickling over smooth stones. Aiden approached, his staff in hand, and dipped his fingers into the cool water. He closed his eyes, taking in its refreshing taste. The stream seemed to provide a sense of peace amidst the chaos they had faced. "This place feels safe," Sybil observed from behind him, her voice soft but firm. "Perhaps we can rest for a while." Aiden nodded, turning to face her. Her eyes were filled with concern, and he could see the weight of their shared past burdening her. He reached out and gently touched her cheek, feeling the roughness from where she had been clawed during their battle against Elysia's cultists. "We will find a way to heal," he said, trying to reassure her. "I believe there is something more to this world than what we have experienced so far." Sybil looked into his eyes, and Aiden could see the flicker of hope in hers. They shared a moment of understanding before setting up camp near the stream. As night fell, they huddled together for warmth, listening to the sounds of the forest around them. The calmness was short-lived, however, as the ground beneath them began to tremble. Aiden and Sybil exchanged glances, and then rose to face whatever threat approached. A massive beast emerged from the darkness, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. Aiden raised his staff, ready to defend himself and Sybil. The beast roared, causing the ground to shake violently. Aiden fought back, using everything he knew about ancient lore to try and communicate with the creature. To his surprise, it stopped its attack and retreated into the forest. As they caught their breath, Aiden looked at Sybil, a sense of determination in his eyes. "I think we've made an ally," he said, hoping that they had found a way to navigate the treacherous path ahead. "But I fear this is far from over." In the dense forest, Aiden and Sybil rested by a small stream, both weary from battle but cautious of their surroundings. The sun hung low in the sky, casting dappled light through the trees, and the air was thick with humidity. As they shared stories of their pasts, Aiden noticed something peculiar about his companion. Sybil's eyes seemed to glow faintly, a soft golden hue that flickered like embers. He dismissed it as mere exhaustion, but couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to this being than met the eye. A sudden rustle in the undergrowth caused Aiden to tense, his hand instinctively reaching for his staff. Sybil rose to her feet, her gaze scanning the forest with heightened focus. From the dense undergrowth emerged a massive beast, its scales glistening with moisture and awning like embers. It roared, causing Aiden to recoil in fear. But to his surprise, Sybil stepped forward, addressing the creature calmly. "I am Sybil," she said, her voice steady despite the monster's intimidating presence. "And I mean you no harm." The beast hesitated for a moment before lowering its head, acknowledging Sybil's words. It seemed familiar with her in some way, as if they had met before, though Aiden couldn't quite place why. "This is Sybil," Aiden explained, hoping to ease the tension between them. "I am Aiden." The beast regarded him warily, its eyes never leaving his face. Aiden could feel a sense of curiosity emanating from it, but also something more malevolent. Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through the clearing, and the air grew colder. The ground shook as Alicia appeared, her cultists following closely behind. She sneered at the sight of Sybil and Aiden, her eyes gleaming with greed. "So," she said, her voice dripping with venom, "you have found each other." Bad. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening in the dense undergrowth of the forest. A twig snapped beneath their feet as Aiden and Sybil crept closer to the secluded clearing. The massive beast they encountered earlier was nowhere in sight, but something felt off. They scanned the area carefully, listening for any sign of movement. "Sybil," Aiden whispered, "I sense another presence nearby." The once reawakened being tensed, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the surrounding sounds and scents. Her ears twitched, picking up on a faint rustle coming from deeper in the forest. "We must be cautious," Sybil warned. "There may be more than one threat out there." Aiden nodded, gripping his staff tightly as they moved further into the dense undergrowth. As they stepped into the clearing hidden among the trees, they found themselves face to face with a group of Elisa's cultists. "Ah, so you have finally been discovered," Alicia said, stepping forward from behind her followers. "I must say I am quite impressed by your resilience." Aiden glared at the High Priestess, his grip tightening on the staff as he stood tall. "You will not take us without a fight." Alicia smiled, revealing fangs that seemed out of place in her otherwise human form. Oh, we'll see about that. The cultists surrounded them, preparing for battle. Aiden and Sybil exchanged a brief glance before charging forward, staffs swinging and clashing against their enemies. The fight was brutal but short-lived, as the massive beast they encountered earlier burst from the forest's edge, sending the cultists fleeing in terror. With Alicia nowhere to be found, Aiden turned to Sybil, who had been keeping an eye on the massive beast. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. "We need to learn more about this creature and its intentions," Aiden replied. "But first, let's tend to our wounds." With the immediate threat neutralized for the moment, Aiden and Sybil took a moment to rest by the stream, tending to their injuries. They exchanged stories of their past lives, growing closer despite their differences. As they spoke, Aiden couldn't help but feel that there was still danger lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike when they least expected it. The dense undergrowth of the forest whispered secrets as scholar Aiden and beast Sybil wandered deeper into its heart. The air was heavy with tension, the memory of their recent encounters with Alicia's cult still fresh in their minds. "I wonder what awaits us in this ancient place," Aiden mused, tracing his fingers over the runes etched on his staff. "The forest seems to pulse with its own heartbeat." Sybil responded with a low growl, her eyes flickering with curiosity and apprehension. The beast within her stirred, longing for answers about their origin. As they continued through the dense foliage, Aiden's keen senses picked up on something ominous lurking nearby. He tightened his grip on the staff, readying himself for whatever lay ahead. The sound of rustling leaves and snapping branches sent a shiver down their spines as the two newcomers entered the secluded clearing, where an ancient stone pedestal stood in the center. On its top rested a staff with intricate runes and carvings that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. "What is this place?" Sybil asked, her voice filled with awe. "It feels familiar." Aiden approached cautiously, his eyes scanning the pedestal. He felt an overwhelming sense of history and power emanating from it. He reached out to touch the staff, feeling the magic coursing through him. As he grasped the staff, a sudden surge of energy flooded Aiden's body. His vision blurred, and he stumbled backward, clutching the staff tightly. Sybil rushed to his side, her own power surging as well, trying to shield them from whatever was happening. The forest around them seemed to shake and tremble, as if awakening from a long sleep. A low growl echoed through the trees, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. With a gasp, Aiden's vision cleared, revealing the massive beast that had been lurking in the shadows. Its eyes seemed to burn with an otherworldly fire, and its body was covered in shimmering scales. "We are not alone here," Aiden managed, his voice shaking. "But I do not think we should fear this creature." Sybil's growl deepened into a snarl as she bared her teeth at the beast. "I welcome any foe that dares to challenge us," she said defiantly. The beast stared at them for a long moment before letting out a low rumble that echoed through the clearing. It seemed to understand their words and posture, acknowledging their challenge with a slow nod of its massive head. With a sudden surge of energy, Aiden found himself standing eye to eye with the beast, his staff glowing brightly in his hand. Sybil stood beside him, her own power surging as she prepared to face this new adversary. As the battle began, they discovered that the creature was unlike any other they had ever encountered. It moved with a grace and intelligence that belied its monstrous appearance. They fought for what felt like hours, exchanging blows and spells in a dance of life and death. With every strike, Aiden and Sybil felt their powers growing stronger, their bond deepening as they faced this mysterious foe together. When the beast finally roared its defeat, they stood victorious amidst the wreckage of the clearing, panting and exhausted but unbroken. As the forest returned to silence, Aiden turned to Sybil, a question burning in his eyes. "What is our next move?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sybil looked at him, her eyes filled with determination. "We find Alicia," she said firmly. "Together, we will discover the truth about our past and the fate of this world." Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. Aiden and Sybil moved cautiously through the dense undergrowth of the forest, their senses heightened as they searched for any sign of Alicia or her cultists. The air was thick with tension, a palpable sense of foreboding hanging over them like an oppressive shroud. The trees seemed to close in around them, whispering ancient secrets on the wind. Aiden's staff hummed softly in his hand, its runes glowing faintly as it sensed the magic that coursed through the forest. Sybil walked silently by his side, her own form a constant reminder of their shared destiny. As they made their way deeper into the forest, Aiden couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The slightest rustle in the underbrush or distant cry sent chills down his spine. He gripped his staff tighter, ready to defend himself and Sybil at a moment's notice. After what felt like hours of trekking through the dense foliage, they stumbled upon a small stream that cut through the forest like a ribbon of silver. Aiden hesitated for a moment, the water looking icy cold and inviting but also dangerous. He knew they needed to find shelter soon, as night was fast approaching. "We should follow the stream," Sybil said, her eyes scanning their surroundings. "It may lead us to a clearing where we can rest for the night." Aiden nodded, following her lead as they crossed the stream and began walking along its bank. The forest seemed to close in around them once more, but Aiden's determination never wavered. He knew that they were on the right path, and he would not let anything stand in their way. As they walked, Aiden couldn't shake the feeling that something was following them. Every rustle in the leaves, every snap of a twig seemed to confirm his suspicions. He tightened his grip on his staff, prepared for battle at any moment. Suddenly, Sybil stopped dead in her tracks, her eyes wide with fear. A low growl echoed through the trees, followed by a massive shadow that lumbered into view. Aiden's heart raced as he saw the beast, a towering behemoth of muscle and fang, its eyes burning with an otherworldly light. Without hesitation, Aiden raised his staff and charged forward, Sybil by his side. Together, they fought for their lives against the terrifying creature, their every strike a desperate attempt to defend themselves. The battle was fierce and brutal, but Aiden knew that they could not afford to lose. As they fought, Aiden felt something inside him shift. His senses became heightened, his movements sharper and more precise. He could feel the power coursing through him, the magic that flowed from the staff igniting within him like a raging inferno. With one final burst of strength, Aiden managed to strike the beast down, collapsing onto the forest floor as exhaustion washed over him. Sybil was beside him moments later, her breathing labored but steady. They had survived another day. As they caught their breath, Aiden turned to Sybil, his eyes filled with gratitude and determination. "We must keep moving," he said, struggling to his feet. "Elysia and her cultists are out there somewhere, and we cannot rest until we find them." In the dim light of twilight, Aiden and Sybil found themselves standing before a small stream, their hearts pounding with exhaustion and fear. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy that seemed to tingle at the edges of their senses. Ahead lay a dense undergrowth of the forest, the leaves rustling ominously, as if whispering secrets known only to the ancient beings who dwelt within. Aiden tightened his grip on the staff with intricate runes and carvings that now pulsed gently with an inner light, its power coursing through him like a living entity. "We must be cautious," Aiden warned Sybil, who nodded in agreement, her eyes flickering between the shadows of the forest's edge and the small clearing behind them. "We will move slowly and silently." Together, they stepped into the dense undergrowth, each step a challenge to maintain their balance amidst the tangled roots and vines that snaked beneath their feet. The air grew colder as they ventured deeper into the forest, the oppressive silence broken only by the distant hoot of some unseen creature. As they traveled further, Aiden felt a growing unease, a creeping suspicion that they were being watched. He glanced at Sybil, who met his gaze with a determination that spoke volumes about her own unease. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush to their left caused them both to freeze. Aiden raised his staff, feeling the power within it surge as he prepared himself for battle. Sybil drew close, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the area around them. From the dense foliage emerged a figure cloaked in shadows, its form barely discernible against the darkness. As it stepped out into the clearing, Aiden's heart raced. He knew that silhouette all too well. High Priestess Alicia stood before them, her expression unreadable behind her veil. "You have eluded me for long enough," she said coldly, her voice echoing through the forest like a harbinger of doom. "I have come to claim what is rightfully mine." Aiden felt his grip on the staff tighten as he stared into Elijah's eyes, knowing that this was the moment they had been preparing for since their first encounter. Cybele stepped protectively in front of him, her own power growing as she prepared to face Elijah and her cult. "You will not take what is ours," Aiden growled, his voice filled with defiance. "We will fight you and your followers until our last breath." Alicia's lips curled into a chilling smile as she gestured to the cloaked figures that emerged from the shadows behind her. "It seems we have much to discuss," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "Let us settle this matter once and for all." Yes. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening, as the sun dipped below the tree line, casting a golden glow upon the secluded clearing, Aiden felt a growing unease. His senses were heightened, and he could feel something sinister lurking nearby. Cybele sensed it too, her eyes flashing with an otherworldly light as she scanned their surroundings. "We should move on," she warned him. "The beast we encountered earlier may not have been the only one." Aiden nodded, gripping his staff tightly. The intricate runes and carvings that now pulsed gently with an inner light hummed softly in response to Sibyl's words. They packed their belongings quickly, making sure they didn't leave anything behind that could alert any potential threats. The forest seemed to close in around them as they ventured deeper into the dense undergrowth. Aiden and Cybele kept a careful watch for signs of danger, but it wasn't long before they heard the distant sound of rustling leaves and heavy footsteps. "Something's coming," Aiden whispered urgently. Sibyl's eyes narrowed. "We must be ready." From out of the shadows emerged a massive beast, its scales glinting menacingly in the dim light. Its roar shook the earth beneath their feet, causing Aiden and Cybele to stumble. They quickly regained their footing, each brandishing their weapons with determination. The beast charged at them, its powerful jaws snapping as it sought to tear them apart. Aiden raised his staff, summoning a bolt of energy that struck the creature square in its chest. The impact sent the beast tumbling backward, but it was far from defeated. It rose once more, snarling viciously as it renewed its attack. Cybele leapt into action, her movements fluid and graceful as she dodged and countered the beast's attacks. Aiden followed suit, channeling his newfound powers to defend against the creature's relentless onslaught. They fought with a ferocity born of desperation, knowing that one mistake could cost them their lives. As the battle raged on, High Priestess Elijah and her cultists emerged from the forest, watching the scene unfold with interest. Their eyes gleamed with greed as they considered the possibilities of harnessing such immense power for themselves. Elijah stepped forward, a wicked smile playing upon her lips. "I see you've made an acquaintance," she called out to Aiden and Cybele. "Allow me to offer you a proposition." Aiden glared at the cultists, his heart pounding in his chest. "We have no need for your help or your manipulations." Alyssa's smile widened. "Suit yourself," she said, raising her hands and summoning a wave of dark energy that washed over Aiden and Cybele, sapping their strength and leaving them vulnerable. The beast sensed their weakness and pounced, snarling victoriously as it closed in for the kill. With a final surge of determination, Aiden and Cybele fought back against both their foes. They knew that they couldn't afford to let either the cult or the beast claim victory. As the battle raged on, the forest seemed to pulse with energy, the air crackling with the raw power being unleashed. In the end, Aiden and Cybele emerged victorious, their bodies battered and bruised, but still standing tall. The cultists retreated, their interest in the reawakened beings now piqued even further. As for the beast, it lay defeated and lifeless at their feet. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the forest's shadows began to grow deeper and more sinister. Aiden's staff pulsed gently with an inner light, casting eerie patterns across his and Cybele's faces. They had been traveling for days, weaving through dense undergrowth, seeking solace in secluded clearings hidden among the trees. Exhaustion threatened to consume them, but they pushed onward, determined to survive. The forest seemed to grow darker as they ventured further, and a sense of unease settled over Aiden. He could feel it, something was out there, watching them. Finally, the duo stumbled upon a small stream. Cybele's keen eyes spotted a large creature lurking nearby, its massive form half hidden by the underbrush. It seemed to be watching them intently. "We cannot stay here," Aiden said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We must find somewhere safer." They left the stream behind and pressed deeper into the forest, their senses straining for any sign of danger. The creature followed, staying just out of sight, stalking them with an almost human-like intelligence. Aiden's staff hummed softly as they moved, guiding them through the darkness. He could feel its power pulsing within him, urging him to face this new threat head-on. Sybil, sensing his growing frustration, placed a calming hand on his arm. "Trust yourself, Aiden," she said softly. "We will face this together." As they ventured deeper into the forest, the creature's presence grew stronger. Aiden could feel its dark energy pulsating through the air around them, a palpable threat to their very existence. He gritted his teeth, focusing on the staff in his hands, feeling the runes and carvings hum with power. The forest seemed to close in around them, the underbrush growing denser, the shadows darker. Aiden could sense the beast's approach, its breath hot on their necks as it finally emerged from the undergrowth. It was massive, a monstrous form that defied description, with eyes that seemed to burn like coals. Aiden raised his staff, feeling the power within him surge as he focused on the creature before them. Sybil stood beside him, her own energy surging in response. Together, they faced the beast, knowing that this would be the battle that determined their fate. The creature roared, lunging forward with terrifying speed. Aiden and Sybil stood their ground, their staffs glowing brightly as they channeled their power against the beast. The forest seemed to shake beneath their feet as they fought, the air crackling with energy. For what felt like an eternity, they battled, each blow sending shockwaves through the air. Aiden could feel himself weakening, his body screaming for rest, but he refused to give in. Sybil fought beside him, her determination unwavering. Finally, with a mighty roar, the beast reared back and unleashed a devastating attack. Aiden felt himself being thrown backward, his staff shattering beneath the force of the blow. Sybil cried out as she stumbled, barely managing to avoid the beast's claws. As they lay on the ground, battered and bruised, Aiden could feel the darkness closing in around them. The forest seemed to grow even darker, and he knew that if they didn't find a way to defeat this creature, they would surely perish here. With what little strength remained within him, Aiden reached out to Sybil, his hand finding hers as they stared up at the beast. Together, they focused their energy, channeling it into their staffs once more. The air crackled with power and the forest seemed to tremble beneath them. With a final surge of strength, they launched themselves at the beast, their staffs glowing brighter than ever before. Aiden felt his body grow heavier, his senses dulling as he poured every ounce of energy into this final attack. The blast struck the beast with the force of 1,000 thunderbolts, sending it reeling backward. For a moment, they stood there, panting heavily, their staffs still glowing brightly. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the beast's response. Slowly, the beast rose, swaying unsteadily on its feet. Its eyes burned with fury, and Aiden could feel the darkness within it growing stronger. But then, suddenly, it roared once more and fled into the depths of the forest, disappearing from sight. Aiden and Sybil lay there for a moment, their bodies aching from the effort of the battle. They had won, but at great cost. As they slowly stood, Aiden couldn't help but wonder what other dangers awaited them in this dark, twisted forest. But for now, they would rest, regain their strength, and prepare themselves for whatever might come next. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening in the depths of the enchanted forest. A dense undergrowth obscured the path ahead. Sybil's keen senses picked up on something unusual. "Aiden," she whispered, pointing into the shadows. "I sense something." The scholar peered through the foliage and gasped at the sight before him. High Priestess Alicia stood there, surrounded by a group of robed cultists. Aiden's heart raced as he clutched his staff tightly. "Aiden," Alicia called out with an icy smile. "We've been looking for you." The two parties faced each other warily, weapons at the ready. Sybil stepped protectively in front of Aiden, growling low in her throat. Alicia raised an eyebrow. "You have grown stronger?" she said to Sybil, her voice dripping with venom. "But you are still no match for me." Aiden steeled himself, his eyes never leaving Alicia. "We won't let you use us for your own gain," he declared, raising his staff. "Not anymore." The cultists closed in, their faces twisted with malice, weapons at the ready. Aiden and Sybil fought back fiercely, using every bit of strength they had left to keep the cultists at bay. The battle raged on as night fell around them, each blow exchanged with a growl or grunt. As the fight wore on, Aiden felt a surge of power within him, the runes on his staff glowing brighter than ever before. He swung it with renewed strength, sending one cultist flying back into the trees. Elysia watched from the sidelines, her eyes narrowing as she studied Aiden's transformation. "You may have grown stronger," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "but you still don't know your own limits." Just then, a loud crack echoed through the forest, and a massive beast burst from the undergrowth, roaring in fury as it charged towards Elysia and her cultists. The sudden interruption gave Aiden and Cybele the opportunity they needed to escape, disappearing into the dense foliage before the beast could reach them. As they ran, the scholar and his companion exchanged worried glances. "What was that?" Aiden asked, panting heavily. Cybele shook her head. "I don't know," she replied, "but we can't stay here much longer." They continued through the forest, their path illuminated only by the faint glow of the moon and stars. As they journeyed deeper into the darkness, Aiden couldn't shake the feeling that something was following them, watching from the shadows. The air grew colder as they approached a clearing hidden among the trees. In the center stood an ancient stone pedestal, its surface etched with strange runes. Aiden hesitated for a moment before approaching it, his staff held tightly in his grip. As he touched the runes, a sudden surge of energy coursed through him, and he felt himself changing, growing stronger. Cybele stood beside him, her eyes wide as she watched the transformation unfold. When Aiden opened his eyes, he found that he had become something more than human, something powerful. He looked down at his hands, now covered in thick, scaly skin, and felt a mixture of awe and fear wash over him. Cybele stepped closer to him, her eyes filled with pride and determination. "We've come this far," she said, "and we won't stop until we uncover the truth about our origins." Aiden nodded, his newfound power surging through him. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that they were no longer just scholars, they were something more. As they turned to leave the clearing, they heard a loud crash behind them and felt the ground shake beneath their feet. They glanced back, just in time to see Elysia and her cultists charging towards them, their eyes filled with rage. As the sun began its slow descent beneath the dense canopy of leaves overhead, a sense of unease settled over the ancient forest like a heavy shroud. Aiden and Cybele found themselves surrounded by thick undergrowth, their progress hindered by gnarled roots and thorny vines that threatened to ensnare them at every turn. The air was thick with tension, as they knew that Elysia and her cultists would not give up so easily. Aiden held his staff tightly in one hand, the intricate runes and carvings now pulsing gently with an inner light. In his other hand, he clutched a flint and dry twig, ready to start a fire if they needed to rest. Cybele followed close behind him, her steps silent and sure as she moved through the dense undergrowth with a grace that belied her monstrous appearance. As they pushed deeper into the forest, Aiden could feel his senses growing more keen, a side effect of his transformation. The rustling of leaves overhead seemed to echo with the whispers of ancient secrets, and he found himself unable to shake the feeling that they were being watched. His heart raced as he scanned the dense foliage around them, searching for any sign of movement or danger. Suddenly, a twig snapped underfoot, a clear indication that they were not alone. Aiden tensed, his staff coming up in a defensive position as Cybele growled low in her throat. They both knew that their pursuers were close, and they braced themselves for the confrontation they had been dreading. With a flash of movement, figures emerged from the shadows, their robes billowing around them like dark clouds. Aiden could see the symbols of Elysia's cult etched onto their chests, a grim reminder of the danger they posed. The air grew cold as the cultists closed in on them, their eyes filled with hatred and determination. Aiden summoned all his strength, his body surging with power as he prepared to defend himself and Cybele against the onslaught. He could feel the runes on his staff responding to his call, the pulsing light growing brighter as they crackled with energy. Cybele growled once more, her form shifting slightly as she readied herself for battle. The first cultist lunged at Aiden, a knife glinting in the fading light of day. Aiden swung his staff with all his might, the weapon connecting solidly with the cultist's arm and sending him sprawling to the ground. The other cultists closed in around them, their blades flashing like lightning as they attacked. Sybil roared, her form growing larger and more monstrous as she fought off multiple attackers at once. Aiden fought beside her, his staff crackling with energy as he deflected blow after blow. The forest seemed to tremble around them as the battle raged on, the air thick with the scent of sweat, blood, and fear. In the chaos, Aiden caught a glimpse of something moving through the shadows, a massive beast that lurked at the edge of his vision. He couldn't quite make out its form, but he knew it was watching them. As they fought off Eliza's cultists, Aiden couldn't shake the feeling that this creature might be their salvation or their doom. With a final burst of strength, Aiden managed to disarm one of the cultists and send him sprawling into the undergrowth. Sybil, her form now towering over the remaining cultists, roared once more before pouncing on them with a fierce, primal fury. The air around them crackled with magic as their attackers crumpled to the ground, defeated and terrified. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening, as they traversed through dense undergrowth and secluded clearings, Aiden's staff glowed with an inner light, guiding them deeper into the ancient forest. The weight of their newfound powers weighed heavily on them, but Aiden's insatiable curiosity drove him forward. Suddenly they heard a low growl echoing through the trees, and a massive beast emerged from the dense foliage. A battle for survival ensued, testing their newly discovered abilities to their limits. The beast, however, proved to be a formidable opponent, relentless in its pursuit of the duo. Just as all hope seemed lost, they stumbled upon an ancient stone pedestal hidden among the trees. The pedestal bore intricate runes and carvings that now pulsed gently with an inner light. Aiden recognized the symbols from his studies. It was a relic of the past, designed to aid those in peril. In their desperation, they managed to activate the artifact, summoning forth a blinding flash of energy that blinded the beast and allowed them to escape. Exhausted but alive, Aiden and Sybil vowed to uncover the secrets behind these ancient relics and the true nature of their transformations. But they knew they could not rest for long. High Priestess Elysia and her cult were still out there searching for them. The duo prepared themselves for the inevitable confrontation with the charismatic leader and her followers. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ancient forest, Aiden and Sybil approached a secluded clearing. Their hearts raced with adrenaline as they glanced over their shoulders, searching for any sign of the beast that had nearly ended their lives earlier. The clearing was a haven amidst the dense undergrowth, offering a brief respite from the relentless foliage. A small stream flowed gently through it, its waters shimmering with an eerie glow. Aiden's staff pulsed softly in his hand, emitting a warm light that illuminated their surroundings. Sybil turned to Aiden, her eyes filled with worry. "We can't stay here for long," she said, glancing around nervously. "Elysia and her cult may be close by." Aiden nodded, his gaze fixed on the staff in his hand. "I know," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "But we need to rest and gather our strength before we face them again." They settled down near the stream, their backs pressed against the rough bark of an ancient tree. Aiden used flint and dry twigs to start a small fire, and they shared a meager meal of dried fruit and nuts. As they ate, Aiden studied the staff in his hands, tracing the intricate runes and carvings with his fingers. Suddenly Sybil stiffened, her ears pricked up. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Aiden listened for a moment before nodding slowly. "I think so," he replied, his heart pounding in his chest. "It sounds like footsteps." They exchanged a worried glance as they stood up, their senses on high alert. Aiden gripped his staff tightly, feeling the power coursing through it as his body began to transform. His muscles bulked, his eyes glowed with an eerie light, and his claws extended from his fingertips. Sybil's own transformation was slower, but just as dramatic. Her fur darkened, her teeth grew sharper, and her movements became more fluid and graceful. Together, they prepared to face whatever danger lay ahead. As they stepped out of the clearing, they saw a group of cultists creeping through the undergrowth, their faces hidden behind hooded robes. They carried weapons in their hands, their eyes fixed on Aiden and Sybil with unmasked malice. A battle ensued, the two beasts clashing with the cultists in a frenzy of violence. Aiden's staff crackled with energy as he swung it wildly, his movements powerful and precise. Sybil fought with ferocity, her claws slashing through robes and flesh with ease. but despite their best efforts, they were outnumbered. More cultists appeared from the shadows, surrounding them on all sides. Aiden and Sybil fought valiantly, but were gradually worn down by the relentless onslaught. Just when all hope seemed lost, a sudden flash of light blinded the cultists, and Alicia stepped out from the trees. Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly power as she raised her hands, summoning forth a barrage of dark energy that swept through the clearing. Aiden and Sybil fell to their knees, gasping for breath as the dark energy tore through them. Alicia approached them slowly, her voice dripping with malice. "You cannot defeat me," she hissed, her eyes never leaving their battered forms. "You are nothing but tools to be used and discarded." Aiden struggled to his feet, his body shaking with exhaustion. He gripped his staff tightly, determined to fight on. "We won't let you destroy us," he snarled, his voice hoarse from the battle. "I will not allow you to control us or our powers." Alicia laughed cruelly, her eyes glowing with hatred. "Then you are truly foolish," she said, raising a hand to strike him down. But before she could act, a massive roar echoed through the forest, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The cultists screamed and fled in terror as a colossal beast emerged from the shadows, its eyes fixed on Alicia with unmasked fury. As the battle between the two ancient beings raged across the clearing, Aiden and Sybil struggled to their feet, their bodies aching from the fight against Alicia's cultists. They knew they had to escape while they could, but as they turned to flee, they saw a familiar figure approaching them cautiously. It was the beast that had nearly killed them before, its massive form towering over them. But this time, there was something different about it, a sense of intelligence and understanding in its eyes. Aiden recognized it as another reawakened being like himself and Sybil. The two beasts regarded each other warily, their senses alert for any sign of hostility. Slowly they began to circle one another, sizing each other up. Aiden could sense a powerful connection between them, a bond forged by their shared experiences and transformations. Suddenly, the massive beast lunged at him, its massive jaws snapping shut inches from his face. Aiden recoiled in shock as the beast pinned him to the ground, its eyes filled with curiosity rather than malice. With a sudden surge of adrenaline, Aiden broke free and stood up, facing the massive beast eye to eye. They communicated without words, their minds linking together for a moment as they shared memories and emotions. Aiden sensed the beast's loneliness, its frustration at being trapped in this form. He felt a deep empathy for the creature, knowing all too well what it was like to struggle with the weight of change. As the two beasts broke their connection, Aiden knew he couldn't leave the creature behind. Together, they would face whatever dangers lay ahead, united in their struggle against Alicia and her cult. As the sun began its descent, Aiden, Sybil, and the massive beast continued their journey through the dense undergrowth of the ancient forest. The air was thick with tension, as each step felt like a testament to their survival against Alicia's cult. Their path led them to a small stream, its waters shimmering in the dying light of day. Aiden used his staff to part the overgrown vegetation and guide them along the bank, taking care not to make too much noise. Sybil, ever vigilant, scanned their surroundings, her senses heightened by the transformation she had undergone. "Aiden," she whispered, her eyes narrowing as they locked onto something beyond the stream. "Something? I can't quite see it." Aiden, his curiosity piqued, cautiously stepped closer to the water's edge and peered into the darkness. A flash of movement caught his eye, a glimpse of a large creature lurking nearby. He raised his staff, its runes glowing with an inner light that seemed to pierce the gloom. "Sybil," he said softly, "I think we have company." Arr. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. Aiden and Sybil crept along the stream's edge, their senses heightened as they moved cautiously through the dense undergrowth of the forest. The colossal beast remained hidden behind them, its presence a constant reminder of both their greatest hope and deepest fear. The air grew thick with tension as they approached the clearing where they had last encountered Alicia's cultists. Aiden clutched his staff tightly, feeling the intricate runes and carvings that now pulsed gently with an inner light. He glanced at Sybil, whose eyes flickered between him and the dense forest ahead. "Are you ready?" he whispered, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Sybil nodded tersely, her eyes never leaving the dark shadows of the woods. The small stream they followed meandered through the clearing, its gentle flow barely audible over their heavy breathing. As they entered the clearing, Aiden scanned the area for any signs of movement. His heart raced as he caught a glimpse of something large and sinister lurking in the trees nearby, just beyond the light cast by the moon and stars. He tightened his grip on the staff, prepared to face whatever awaited them here. "There," Sybil whispered, pointing towards a group of figures huddled around an ancient stone pedestal deep within the clearing. Alicia stood at the center, her eyes gleaming with malice as she addressed her cultists. Aiden and Sybil exchanged a glance, knowing that they couldn't avoid this confrontation any longer. They stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they moved closer, Alicia's eyes narrowed, sensing their approach. "You have come far enough," she called out, her voice echoing through the clearing. "But your journey ends here." Aiden steeled himself, knowing that he would need all his wits and strength to survive this battle. He raised his staff, feeling its power surge within him as he prepared for the fight of his life. The cultists surged forward, their eyes filled with hatred. Aiden and Sybil stood their ground, ready to defend themselves against the onslaught. The colossal beast stirred behind them, sensing the danger and preparing to join the fray. The battle raged on as Aiden and Sybil fought for their lives. They dodged and parried, their staffs clashing with the cultists' weapons. Aiden could feel himself growing weaker, but he refused to give up. He focused on each blow, channeling his inner strength into every strike. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the forest as the colossal beast burst from its hiding place, roaring in fury. The cultists stumbled back in fear, their weapons useless against the massive creature's powerful attacks. Alicia watched as her followers fled, her eyes blazing with anger. She turned to face Aiden and Sybil, who stood defiantly before her. "You have won this battle," Alicia spat, "but the war is far from over." Aiden nodded grimly, knowing that their journey was far from complete. As they watched the cultists retreat, he could feel the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on him. He turned to Sybil, his eyes filled with determination. "We must press on," he said firmly. "There is much more at stake than just our lives." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dense undergrowth of the forest. Aiden and Sybil ventured further into the ancient woods, their steps guided by flickering firelight from the flint and dry twigs they carried. The beast remained hidden, sensing danger ahead. They had been on the move for hours, seeking a safe haven from Alicia's cultists. Ahead lay a clearing, barely visible through the trees. As they approached, they noticed the air growing thick with magic. The scent of the pedestal still lingered. "I feel it," Sybil growled, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. "The power here is strong." Aiden nodded, his staff clutched tightly in his hand. "We need to find shelter before nightfall." As they entered the clearing, a sudden rustling from the underbrush caught their attention. A massive beast emerged from the shadows, its eyes reflecting an eerie glow. "What is that?" Aiden whispered, stepping back protectively towards Sybil. Sybil tensed, her teeth bared. "A creature of power," she said. "It might be here for the same reason we are." The beast circled them warily, its movements fluid and graceful despite its immense size. Aiden took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He could sense something familiar about this creature, though he couldn't quite place it. "What do we do?" Aiden asked, trying to remain calm as the beast continued to circle them. Sybil sighed, lowering her guard slightly. "We wait," she said, "and see if it will let us pass." The creature seemed to sense their intent, and with a final growl, it stepped back into the shadows from whence it came. Aiden and Sybil breathed a sigh of relief, settling down near the pedestal as the first drops of rain began to fall. "We can't rest here for long," Aiden said, glancing at the storm clouds gathering on the horizon. "Alicia will be searching for us." Sybil nodded grimly. "But we need to understand this place and its power," she said. "If there's any chance it can help us against Alicia's cult, I won't let it go unexplored." Echoes-of-the-Abyssal-Reawakening. The rain fell heavily as they ventured deeper into the dense undergrowth of the forest. Aiden and Sybil clung to each other, seeking warmth in the cold, damp air. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the scent of wet earth and decay. "We should find shelter soon," Aiden said, his voice barely audible over the storm. I don't think we can last much longer out here. Sybil nodded, her eyes scanning their surroundings for any sign of a safe place to rest. Their journey had been long and treacherous, but they couldn't afford to slow down now. The cult was growing stronger every day, and they needed to find a way to stop them before it was too late. As they pressed onward through the dense foliage, Sybil spotted a small stream up ahead. It wasn't much, but it was enough to provide some protection from the storm. They approached cautiously, Aiden scanning the area for any signs of danger. "It seems clear," he said, gesturing towards the stream. "Let's make our way there." They waded through the water, their feet sinking into the muddy bottom. As they reached the other side, they noticed a secluded clearing hidden among the trees. The storm seemed to abate slightly in this sheltered spot, and the air felt warmer. It was just what they needed to rest for the night. "We'll make camp here," Aiden said, setting down his pack and pulling out some dry twigs and flint. "I'll start a fire." Sybil nodded, her eyes scanning the area for anything that might pose a threat. As Aiden struck sparks against the flint, she felt a strange sensation in the air. Something was watching them. She turned slowly, searching the darkness for any sign of movement. Her heart raced as she caught sight of a pair of glowing eyes in the distance. A massive beast emerged from the shadows, its form shifting and changing as it approached. "Aiden," she whispered, pulling him aside. "Look." Aiden followed her gaze, his eyes widening as he beheld the creature. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before, a twisted amalgamation of different animals that seemed to defy logic and reason. "What is it?" Aiden asked, his voice shaking with fear. Sybil swallowed hard, her heart pounding in her chest. "I don't know," she replied. "But I think it might be able to help us." The beast approached cautiously, its eyes fixed on them as if sizing them up. Sybil stepped forward, holding out her hands in a gesture of peace. To their surprise, the creature did not attack, but instead let out a deep, rumbling growl that seemed almost curious. "What do we do?" Aiden asked, his voice barely audible. Sybil hesitated for a moment before making a decision. "We need to trust it," she said, taking a step closer. "It might be our only hope against Elysia and her cult." The beast seemed to understand her intent, its eyes softening slightly as it took another cautious step towards them. Sybil reached out, gently touching its rough, scaly skin. To their surprise, the creature did not recoil but instead allowed her to stroke its neck. "We can't stay here forever," Aiden said, glancing at the storm that still raged outside. "What will happen when it leaves?" Sybil shrugged, a small smile playing on her lips. "We'll figure it out when we get there," she replied. "But for now, we need to focus on surviving." As they huddled together near the fire, Sybil couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. The world around them was falling apart, but maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to save it. And if they were lucky, perhaps this mysterious beast would prove to be an ally in their fight against Elysia and her cult. A heavy mist hung over the dense forest as Aiden and Sybil huddled around a small fire at the edge of the secluded clearing. The beast sat nearby, watching them warily. A gentle rain began to fall, soaking their clothes and adding to the cold that seemed to permeate everything. "We need to keep moving," Aiden said, his voice barely audible over the pattering of raindrops against the leaves above. "Alicia's cult will be on our trail soon." Sybil nodded, her eyes never leaving the fire. "I feel a strange connection to that creature," she murmured. "If I can understand it, perhaps we might find an ally in this fight." Aiden looked up from his staff with intricate runes and carvings, which now pulsed gently with an inner light. "I sense something powerful within it as well," he admitted. "But if Alicia's cult discovers what we have here, they may use the beast against us." The massive creature stirred, sensing their conversation. Its eyes flickered with intelligence and curiosity. Sybil approached slowly, holding out her hand toward it. The beast hesitated but eventually allowed her to touch its rough hide. A surge of energy passed between them, and both seemed to understand something essential about the other. "It's not just an ally," Sybil whispered, her eyes shining with awe. "It's a key." Aiden frowned, studying the creature carefully. "To what? What does it mean?" Suddenly, they heard the distant sound of approaching footsteps. Aiden grabbed his staff and stood protectively between Sybil and the beast. The The three stared into the darkness as the cultists emerged from the undergrowth, led by High Priestess Elysia herself. "We knew you'd come this way," she called out, her voice cold and calculating. "And now we have what we need to finally harness your powers." Aiden raised his staff, ready for battle. As Cybele stepped protectively in front of the beast. "You will never take us alive," he declared. Elysia smiled, showing no fear. "I've been waiting for this moment for a long time, Scholar. And I won't rest until you're under my control." The fight was fierce and brutal, the air crackling with magic as each side tried to gain the upper hand. Aiden and Cybele fought back with all their might, but the cultists were many, and they seemed almost unstoppable. The beast watched from the shadows, its massive form tensing, as it prepared to intervene if necessary. Finally, with a cry of defiance, Cybele struck Elysia, sending her sprawling into the undergrowth. The cultists hesitated, unsure whether to pursue their leader or defend themselves against the now enraged beast. As the rain continued to fall, Aiden and Cybele retreated deeper into the forest, knowing that they had bought themselves some time, but also realizing that the battle was far from over. The creature followed them silently, its presence a constant reminder of the power they now held and the danger that lay ahead. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening, the clearing where Aiden and Cybele sought refuge was hidden among dense undergrowth, making it difficult for Elysia's cult to find them. The beast remained nearby, watching over them like a silent guardian. As the day waned into twilight, hunger pangs gnawed at their bellies, and Aiden realized they needed food to survive. With Cybele leading the way, they ventured deeper into the forest in search of edible plants or small animals that might serve as sustenance. They stumbled upon a small stream, its waters crystal clear and teeming with life. "We'll find food here," Cybele said confidently, sensing the abundance of the area. Aiden nodded, grateful for her guidance in this unfamiliar world. As they prepared to gather fruits and berries along the stream bank, a sudden rustling sound came from nearby bushes. Aiden grabbed his staff, his heart pounding with fear as he scanned their surroundings. The beast stirred, its eyes flickering with an eerie green glow. "What was that?" Cybele asked, her senses also alerted to the danger. Aiden took a deep breath and focused on the sound, using his knowledge of ancient lore to identify it, a massive creature lurking nearby. "We should be careful," he warned, his voice barely above a whisper. Suddenly, a large shadow emerged from behind a tree, its eyes glowing with malice. The beast let out a low growl, baring its jagged teeth. Aiden and Cybele stood frozen in terror as the creature stepped forward, revealing itself to be a colossal wolf-like beast with imposing horns and a muscular build that seemed almost unnatural. "It's one of them," Cybele whispered, her voice trembling, "a reawakened being like us." "What should we do?" Aiden asked, his grip on the staff tightening. Cybele hesitated for a moment before stepping forward, extending her hand to the beast. It snarled at first, but seemed to sense something in Cybele's touch, calming down. Aiden watched with wide eyes as Cybele spoke softly to the creature, soothing it. The massive beast lowered its head, allowing her to approach it cautiously. Aiden approached as well, unsure of what would happen next. As he reached out to touch the beast, a strange connection formed between them. He felt something deep within his soul, a familiarity that took him aback. It was as if they were bonded in some way, like long-lost siblings reunited after years apart. With newfound confidence, Aiden joined Cybele in speaking to the beast, attempting to form a connection similar to the one she'd established. The massive creature seemed to understand them, tilting its head curiously as they spoke. As the three of them stood there, bonding with the mysterious beast, a group of cultists crept up behind them, their eyes glinting with malice. Aiden and Cybele whirled around, staffs in hand, ready to defend themselves. The massive beast lunged at the cultists, sending them scattering in fear. A fierce battle ensued, Aiden and Cybele fighting together against Elysia's cultists. The beast proved to be a formidable ally, tearing through the enemy with its powerful jaws and sharp claws. As they fought, Aiden couldn't shake the feeling that something greater was at play here, a connection between the reawakened beings that might hold the key to their survival against the looming darkness. In the end, it was the beast that finished off the last of Elysia's cultists, leaving Aiden and Cybele to catch their breath. They looked at each other, exhausted but relieved. We must find a way to stop High Priestess Elysia, Aiden said determinedly. I believe this beast can help us. Sibyl nodded in agreement. We will face whatever comes our way together. As twilight descended upon the ancient forest, Aiden and Cybele stood guard, their newfound ally watching over them from a nearby thicket. The massive beast's eyes glowed softly in the dim light, a constant reminder of its presence and the bond that now connected them. Ahead, the dense undergrowth stretched for miles, concealing any trace of civilization or danger. Aiden gripped his staff tightly, feeling the runes pulse gently with an inner light as he scanned their surroundings. We should find shelter before nightfall, Aiden said, breaking the silence that had settled over them. Our fire will alert any nearby creatures, and we don't want to take unnecessary risks. Sibyl nodded in agreement, her eyes fixed on the forest ahead. The beast growled softly, sensing something stirring within the trees. Aiden tensed, listening intently as he strained to hear anything out of the ordinary. A sudden rustling caught their attention. They exchanged a knowing look and turned to face whatever lay hidden in the undergrowth. As they stepped forward, a group of cloaked figures emerged from the shadows, led by High Priestess Elysia herself. Scholar Aiden, she sneered, her eyes filled with contempt. I thought I'd find you here, lurking among these ancient woods. She gestured to her cultists behind her. Bring him back to the temple. We'll have more use for him there. Aiden raised his staff defensively as Sibyl moved protectively in front of him. The beast growled menacingly, baring its teeth at Elysia and her followers. A tense standoff ensued, the air thick with tension. Elysia's eyes narrowed as she took in the sight of the massive beast by their side. Such a pity, she murmured under her breath. We could have used him for our cause. Aiden gritted his teeth, determined to protect Sibyl and their new ally at any cost. The cultists closed in around them, weapons at the ready, but Aiden refused to back down. As the battle commenced, Aiden and Sibyl fought with everything they had, their bond growing stronger by the second. The beast roared, charging into the fray as Elysia retreated, her eyes filled with frustration. In the end, they emerged victorious, battered but alive. The forest claimed the lives of many cultists, but Aiden, Sibyl, and their ally stood tall, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in this strange new world. As they rested by the stream that night, Aiden couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. They had won this battle, but he knew that Elysia wouldn't give up so easily. The cult was determined to harness the power of beings like them, and Aiden couldn't help but wonder what other dangers lurked in the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. The first rays of dawn pierced through the dense canopy above as Aiden and Cybele woke, feeling weary but alive. Their new ally, a massive beast with emerald eyes and silver fur, approached them slowly, its ears twitching in curiosity. With a mixture of fear and admiration, Aiden looked upon it, knowing it could be their salvation or their downfall. Greetings, he addressed the creature hesitantly, extending his staff towards it. We come in peace. The beast studied him for a moment before lowering its head, allowing Aiden to touch its snout gently. Its eyes closed as he did so, and a wave of emotion washed over both of them, an understanding that neither could articulate but felt deeply within their beings. Sibyl joined them, her own beast form appearing beside her, mirroring the massive creature's features. The two beasts circled each other, noses snuffling and tails swishing in playful greeting. We need to move on, Aiden said, breaking the moment of connection with a sigh. Elysia won't rest until she finds us. With heavy hearts, they prepared to leave the secluded clearing, their new allies reluctant to part ways. The forest seemed more hostile as they ventured deeper, its shadows concealing threats that lurked just beyond sight. Aiden's staff pulsed gently in his hands, its runes and carvings glowing with an inner light. He clutched it tightly, feeling the connection between them growing stronger each day. Sibyl echoed this sentiment, her own beast form shifting as she ran alongside him, protecting their small group with fierce determination. Suddenly a loud crash echoed through the dense undergrowth, causing Aiden to halt in his tracks. The forest seemed to tighten around them, and Sibyl's beast growled low in its throat. Stay close, Aiden warned, moving cautiously forward. Something's out there. They crept through the dense undergrowth, their senses on high alert. The massive beast and Sibyl's form followed closely behind them, their predatory instincts guiding them through the unknown. As they approached a clearing hidden among the trees, they saw it, a large creature lurking nearby, its body half hidden by the shadows. Its eyes glowed with an eerie green light, and a low rumble emanated from its chest. Aiden's heart raced as he realized the beast was unlike any he had encountered before. "What is that?" Sybil whispered, her voice shaking slightly. Aiden hesitated, knowing that confronting this creature could be disastrous, but also understanding they couldn't afford to turn back now. He raised his staff, feeling a surge of power coursing through him as he prepared for battle against the mysterious beast. The forest seemed to hold its breath as they faced each other, the air thick with tension and anticipation. Sweat trickled down Aiden's brow, his grip tightening on his staff. With a roar that echoed through the trees, the massive beast charged at them, sending branches flying in every direction. In that moment, time seemed to slow as they fought for their lives. The forest seemed to blur around them, and Aiden felt himself transforming, his body shifting until he stood before them as a powerful beast like the one they faced. With a cry of defiance, Sybil joined him, her own form changing to match his. Together, they battled the mysterious creature, their newfound strength and agility giving them an edge in the fierce fight. The forest around them seemed alive with energy as they clashed, the ground shaking beneath their powerful paws. Finally, with a mighty roar, Aiden drove his staff into the beast's chest, sending it sprawling to the ground. Exhausted, they collapsed beside it, their hearts pounding in their ears. "We did it," Sybil whispered, tears streaming down her face. Aiden nodded, feeling a newfound sense of purpose coursing through him. This was what he had been destined for, to stand against the forces that sought to destroy them all. Together with Sybil and their new allies, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that they were no longer alone in this world of darkness and danger. As they rested by the stream later that night, Aiden looked up at the stars above, feeling a sense of peace wash over him for the first time since he had been reawakened. This was their world now, and they would make it their own. No matter what Elysia or any other threats might bring, they would stand together, united in purpose and unwavering in their determination to survive. As the dense undergrowth closed in around him, Scholar Aiden struggled to keep Sybil by his side amidst a swarm of cultists pursuing them through the forest. He held onto his staff with runes and carvings that now pulsed gently with an inner light, focusing on maintaining control over his own burgeoning beastly nature as they ran. Aiden, Sybil shouted, her eyes filled with fear. "We need to find shelter. They will catch us if we continue like this." The pair burst into a clearing hidden among the trees, gasping for breath, only to discover that their pursuers had followed them. A large creature lurked nearby, its massive form half concealed by the undergrowth. Its eyes glowed with an eerie green light, mirroring Sybil's own emerald gaze. "Stay back," Aiden warned as he stepped forward cautiously, his staff held tightly in both hands. "We do not yet know if this beast will attack us or help us." Sybil hesitated, her eyes flicking between the creature and the cultists closing in on their position. "I don't like this, Aiden," she whispered, fear creeping into her voice. "We cannot face them all." A cultist charged at them from the side, his weapon glinting in the dim light filtering through the canopy above. The beast suddenly sprang forth, snarling and baring its teeth. It sent the cultist flying back with a single swipe of its massive claw, before turning to face the rest of Elysia's followers. "It seems our new ally has made a choice," Aiden remarked, his heart pounding in his chest as he readied himself for battle. "We will need to use this opportunity wisely." The two beasts charged at the cultists, tearing through their ranks with ease. Aiden and Sybil fought alongside the creature, feeling a strange connection between them despite their differing forms. Together, they managed to hold off Alicia's followers long enough for an opportunity to escape. "We must flee," Aiden panted as they ran deeper into the forest, pursued by the remaining cultists. The beast will not be able to keep them at bay forever. They reached the stream they had discovered days earlier, and waded through the cold water, avoiding the grasping hands of cultists trying to pull them under. As they neared the secluded clearing hidden among the trees, Aiden felt a familiar presence near the ancient stone pedestal. "It seems our friend is waiting for us," Sybil said, slowing her pace as they approached. Perhaps he can help us. The figure standing before them was that of another scholar, his eyes filled with knowledge and wisdom beyond their years. He offered them food and shelter, his voice calm and soothing in the chaos surrounding them. "Welcome, travelers," he greeted them warmly. "I have been expecting you." As they ate, Aiden couldn't help but notice the ancient rune etched into the pedestal behind their newfound ally. It seemed to pulse with a strange energy, drawing his attention despite himself. "What is that?" he asked, pointing toward the pedestal. "It seems familiar." The scholar's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the rune, his expression guarded. "That," he began slowly, "is an ancient artifact of great power, one that could change your lives forever." Aiden felt a shiver run down his spine, sensing the weight of what lay before them. He knew all too well the dangers that awaited them on their journey, but he also understood that sometimes taking risks was necessary to ensure their survival. "We will need all the help we can get," Aiden said firmly. "Show us what this artifact can do." The scholar hesitated for a moment before nodding slowly. "Very well," he replied. "But be warned, once you touch it, there is no going back." Aiden and Sybil exchanged glances, their eyes filled with determination. They knew the risks involved, but they also knew that they couldn't afford to ignore this opportunity. With a deep breath, Aiden stepped forward and touched the ancient rune. As his fingers brushed against the pulsing energy, he felt a surge of power flow through him, connecting him with Sybil and the mysterious beast that had saved them from Elijah's cult. He could sense their thoughts, their feelings, and their desires in a way he never thought possible. "What have we done?" Aiden whispered, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of emotions. "We are no longer human." Sybil placed her hand on his shoulder, offering him comfort as they looked out over the forest that had become their home. "It does not matter," she said softly. "We are stronger now, and together we can face whatever comes our way." And so, Aiden and Sybil embraced their newfound powers, knowing that their journey was only just beginning. They would need to learn how to control these new abilities if they were to survive the challenges ahead, but for now, they took solace in the knowledge that they were longer alone. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting elongated shadows through the dense undergrowth of the forest. Aiden, Sybil, and Scholar stood by a small stream, their faces etched with exhaustion and worry. The night would bring danger, and they knew it. "We must prepare," said Aiden, taking his staff from its resting place against a tree trunk. "The beast may return." He studied the artifact in his hand. The intricate runes and carvings now pulsed gently, with an inner light. The staff resonated with power, a testament to their bond with the creature that had saved them. Sybil stared into the stream, her reflection flickered with uncertainty. "We are not prepared for this." Scholar looked up from tending the fire he had started. His eyes met Aiden's. "I have a plan," he said, his voice low and steady. "But we must trust each other to see it through." The trio huddled together, exchanging glances filled with determination. They knew that they faced challenges unlike any they had encountered before, but their resolve remained unbroken. As night fell, the forest seemed to come alive with unseen creatures stirring in their slumber. A sudden rustling in the bushes nearby made all three of them tense, ready for a fight. Aiden stepped forward, his staff raised. "Show yourself," he called out, his voice strong and steady despite the fear that gnawed at him from within. From the dense undergrowth emerged a massive beast, unlike any they had ever seen before. Its body was covered in thick, shimmering scales, its eyes burning with an otherworldly light. It stared at them for a moment, and then let out a low growl that seemed to shake the very ground beneath their feet. Aiden felt the power within him surge, his body beginning to change as he embraced the beast's essence. He held out his hand to Sybil, who took it without hesitation. Their eyes met for a brief moment before she too began to transform. Scholar stood frozen, watching the incredible sight unfold before him. His own transformation seemed slower, but he knew that he must face whatever came next with courage and determination. The beast regarded them for another long moment before turning and lumbering deeper into the forest. Aiden, Sybil, and Scholar watched it go, their hearts racing as they struggled to comprehend what had just happened to them. "We must follow," said Aiden, his voice filled with determination. "Whatever awaits us in that forest, we will face together." Aiden, Sybil, and Scholar ventured deeper into the dense undergrowth of the forest, their senses on high alert for any sign of the beast or Elysia's cultists. The air grew thick with tension as they navigated through the towering trees and tangled branches. The ground beneath their feet was soft, covered in fallen leaves that crunched underfoot like gravel. Aiden's staff hummed softly, a low vibration that seemed to echo with an ancient energy. Sybil's eyes flickered between her surroundings, ever vigilant for signs of danger. As they trudged along the forest floor, Sybil felt a sudden shift in the air around them. A chill ran down her spine as she sensed something large and fearsome nearby. Turning to face Aiden and Scholar, she pointed towards the dense foliage ahead. "There," she whispered urgently, "something, it's moving up there." Aiden squinted into the shadows, his eyes narrowing as he spotted a flicker of movement. With a grim nod, he raised his staff and beckoned for Sybil and Scholar to follow closely behind him. The trio moved stealthily through the underbrush, staying low as they approached the source of the disturbance. Ahead, the trees thinned slightly, revealing a small stream that cut through the forest floor like a ribbon of silver. The group paused, taking in the scene before them. A clearing hidden among dense undergrowth, with a massive beast standing at its center. The creature was unlike anything they had ever seen before, its form shifting and shimmering as if made of liquid shadow and flame. It stood tall, easily towering over Aiden, Sybil, and Scholar, its eyes glowing like twin moons in the gloom. A sudden rustle from behind startled them all, and they turned to see a group of cultists emerging from the underbrush, brandishing weapons and sneering at their prey. Alicia stood among them, her eyes locked onto Aiden and Sybil with cold intensity. "So," she hissed, "you have finally come to join us. I was beginning to wonder if you had given up." Aiden tensed, gripping the staff tightly as he stepped between Alicia and Sybil. Scholar hesitated for a moment before joining them, his eyes flickering nervously between the cultists and the fearsome beast. "We will not join your cult," Aiden declared, his voice firm but steady. "We come to learn the truth about our origins, just as you do." Alicia's eyes narrowed, a hint of amusement flickering in her gaze. "You are nothing more than pawns in an ancient game," she sneered. "Your power is mine for the taking." Without warning, the massive beast roared, sending tremors through the earth and causing the cultists to scatter in fear. Alicia raised a hand, her voice rising over the chaos as she called upon dark magic. "Beasts of darkness, answer my call. Unite against these fools who would challenge our rightful claim." From all around them, more beasts emerged from the shadows, their forms twisting and shifting with each step they took. Aiden, Sybil, and Scholar exchanged terrified glances as they realized that they were outnumbered and outmatched. But even in the face of such odds, Aiden refused to back down. With a cry of determination, he raised his staff high above his head, the runes and carvings pulsing with an inner light. The beast before him seemed to recognize this display, its eyes flickering as it regarded Aiden with renewed interest. "Join us, creature," Aiden called out, addressing the beast directly. "We seek the truth together." The beast hesitated for a moment, its form rippling like liquid metal. Then, with a low rumble that shook the ground beneath their feet, it stepped forward, placing itself between Aiden, Sybil, and Scholar and Alicia's cultists. Together, Aiden whispered, his voice barely audible above the din of battle. "We face this threat together." As one, they charged into the fray, their combined powers clashing with the dark magic wielded by Alicia and her cultists. The clearing became a battleground, the air filled with the sounds of roars, shouts, and the crashing of weapons against one another. Aiden and Sybil fought side by side, their bond growing stronger with each passing moment as they struggled to hold back the tide of darkness. Scholar watched from afar, his eyes wide with fear and awe as he witnessed the true power of the ancient beings that now stood before him. He knew that they had no chance of winning this battle alone, but he refused to abandon Aiden and Sybil to Alicia's cult. With a cry of defiance, Scholar rushed into the fray, his staff crackling with energy as he joined the fight against the dark forces arrayed before them. The battle raged on, the clearing becoming a whirlwind of chaos and destruction as the three ancient beings fought to hold back the darkness. In the end, it was Aiden who struck the final blow, his staff glowing with an inner light that seemed to banish the shadows around him. As Alicia's cultists fell, One by one, their leader watched in horror as her plans crumbled before her eyes. With a growl of anger, she lunged at Aiden, but the massive beast intercepted her, its form shifting and changing as it batted her aside like a toy. Elysia landed hard on the ground, her body racked with pain as she struggled to rise. "You will not defeat us," she spat venomously. "We shall rise again." Aiden stepped forward, his eyes locked onto Elysia's with cold determination. "This ends now," he said simply. As the dust settled and the battlefield lay still, Aiden, Sybil, Scholar, and the massive beast stood amidst the wreckage of their fight, battered but unbroken. The air was thick with tension as they regarded one another, each weighing their next move carefully. In that moment, Aiden knew that he could not simply let Elysia and her cult go free. He turned to Sybil, his eyes filled with a resolve that left her breathless. "We must find a way to stop them," he said softly. "Together." Sybil nodded, her own determination unwavering. Together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, bound by their shared purpose and the bond between them. As the sun began to set over the ancient forest, Aiden, Sybil, Scholar, and the massive beast stood on the edge of the clearing, looking out over the land that had become their battleground. They knew that their journey was far from over, but they also knew that together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the distance, a soft rustle caught Aiden's attention. Turning, he saw a figure emerge from the shadows, High Priestess Elysia. She stood at the edge of the clearing, her eyes locked onto their group with a fierce determination that left no doubt in Aiden's mind that she would not be defeated so easily. With a sigh, Aiden turned back to Sybil and Scholar, his eyes filled with sorrow but also hope. "Our work is far from done," he said softly, "but we will face whatever comes together." Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening, the clearing filled with an eerie silence, shattered only by the distant whispers of wind through leaves. Aiden leaned against a massive tree trunk, panting heavily, his muscles aching from the brutal battle they had just fought. Sybil knelt beside him, her eyes closed as she focused on healing her wounds. Scholar stood nearby, his gaze locked onto the horizon where High Priestess Elysia's cult still lingered, their malevolent presence heavy in the air. "We cannot rest here," Aiden said, forcing himself to stand. "They'll be back." He looked at Sybil and held out a hand to help her up. Sybil opened her eyes and took his hand, standing slowly. "We need rest," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. Scholar nodded. "I agree. But we cannot let our guard down. We must find shelter before nightfall." They moved through the dense undergrowth of the forest, following a small stream that twisted and turned like a writhing serpent. Aiden's staff with intricate runes and carvings pulsed gently with an inner light, guiding them as they journeyed deeper into the ancient woods. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across their path. The forest grew darker, more ominous. As they approached a clearing hidden among dense undergrowth, a low growl echoed through the trees. Sybil tensed, her eyes wide as she scanned the area. "A beast," Scholar whispered, drawing his staff with runes. "We must be careful." They crept forward, staying close together as they reached the clearing. A massive beast lurked nearby, its form shrouded in darkness. It raised its head and let out another low growl, its eyes glowing red. "We cannot fight it," Sybil whispered. "It's too powerful." Aiden gripped his staff tightly. "We don't have to kill it. We just need to find a way past it." Scholar nodded in agreement. They circled around the clearing, staying as far away from the beast as possible. As they reached the other side, they spotted an ancient stone pedestal with an ancient rune etched into its surface. "What is that?" Scholar asked, approaching cautiously. Aiden peered at it. "I'm not sure. But I think it might hold the key to defeating Elysia." He looked back at Sybil, his eyes determined. "We need to find a way to activate it." They searched for flint and dry twigs to create a spark, but found nothing useful nearby. The beast growled again, drawing closer. Aiden tensed, ready to fight if necessary. But then, an idea struck him. He reached into his satchel and withdrew a small vial filled with a strange liquid. "I think this might do the trick," he said, pouring the liquid onto the pedestal's ancient rune. The stone pulsed with a bright light, and a low hum filled the air. The beast let out a roar, its form dissipating into darkness as the ground beneath it crumbled away. "What did you do?" Sybil asked, astonished. Aiden smiled faintly. I'm not entirely sure. But I think that was a powerful artifact from an ancient civilization. He looked at Scholar. We need to find more of these if we want to stand a chance against Elysia. Scholar nodded, his eyes filled with determination. Let's move on then. We must reach the academy before it's too late. The dense undergrowth of the forest was a maze of twisted branches and towering trees that seemed to close in on Aiden, Sybil, and Scholar as they cautiously picked their way through. The air was thick with an oppressive silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or distant birdsong. We can't keep going like this, Scholar panted, holding his side. We need a rest. Aiden nodded, agreeing that they should pause and catch their breaths. He surveyed their surroundings, searching for a suitable place to set up camp. The dense forest offered little in the way of open spaces. Finally, he spotted a small clearing hidden among the trees, barely large enough for 3 people to stand comfortably. It was surrounded by thick foliage on all sides, providing some semblance of privacy and protection from prying eyes. Here, Aiden said, gesturing towards the secluded spot. We can make camp here. As they settled down, Scholar took out his flint and dry twigs to start a fire while Aiden examined their surroundings with his staff. The ancient artifact pulsed gently in his hand, responding to its environment. He felt a faint vibration, as if sensing something nearby. What is it? Sybil asked, noticing the concern etched on Aiden's face. Something. I can't quite place it, Aiden replied, frowning. It feels like magic, but it doesn't feel like anything we've encountered before. Before they could discuss the matter further, a rustling sound caught their attention. They turned to see a massive creature emerging from the dense undergrowth, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. It was unlike any beast they had ever seen. Its body appeared to be made of shadow and stone, shimmering as it moved. That's not good, Scholar muttered, gripping his staff tightly. Aiden raised his own, ready to defend himself and his companions. Sybil shifted nervously, her instincts telling her that this creature was dangerous. The beast stopped a few feet away from them, regarding the 3 travelers with an air of curiosity. Who are you? Aiden demanded, taking a step forward. And what do you want? The beast seemed to consider his question for a moment before responding in a voice that echoed like thunder through the forest. I am here because I sense power within you, it said. Power that I need. Aiden frowned, sensing the truth behind its words. He looked at Scholar and Sybil, who nodded silently, understanding the danger they were in. They would have to find a way to outsmart this new threat if they wanted to survive. We won't let you take what's ours, Aiden growled, standing his ground. You will have to fight for it. The beast snarled, baring its teeth, but before it could attack, a group of cultists burst from the undergrowth, weapons at the ready. It seemed that High Priestess Elysia had found them once again. A fierce battle ensued with Aiden, Scholar, Sybil, and the mysterious beast fighting alongside each other against Elysia's cultists. The forest echoed with the sounds of clashing steel, roars, and screams. Despite their numbers, the cultists were no match for the combined power of the 4 allies. In the end, they emerged victorious but battered and weary. The massive beast retreated into the shadows, leaving them alone in the clearing. We need to get out of here, Scholar said, panting heavily. Elysia won't give up. Aiden nodded, agreeing that they should press onward. They packed their things and continued their journey through the forest, determined to uncover the truth about their origins and stop Elysia once and for all. Echoes of the Abyssal-Reawakening. The dense forest was a maze of trees, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers, grasping at the fading light from above as Aiden and Sybil trudged through. Their journey had taken them far from the safety of civilization into the unknown depths of an ancient forest shrouded in mystery. Ahead, a small clearing beckoned, promising respite after a long day of trekking. As they approached, Aiden's eyes fell upon something odd, a stone pedestal etched with strange symbols and runes. His heart raced as he recognized the markings, ancient lore from the time before humanity's fall. Sybil, he whispered, what do you make of this? The reawakened being glanced around warily, her eyes scanning the trees for danger. When she saw the pedestal, a flicker of recognition crossed her features. It appears to be some sort of artifact. Aiden approached cautiously, reaching out to touch the runes. A pulsing light emanated from within, enveloping his hand in warmth. Suddenly, he felt a surge of energy coursing through him, more powerful than anything he'd ever experienced. Sybil watched with concern as Aiden stumbled back, gasping for breath. "What happened?" she asked, moving to help him up. I don't know," Aiden replied, panting heavily. "But I feel stronger." As they stood there, a low growl echoed from somewhere nearby. Sybil tensed, her instincts screaming danger. They scanned the trees, searching for any signs of movement. Suddenly, branches rustled ominously overhead, followed by a massive beast emerging from the dense undergrowth. It towered above them, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "Aiden," Sybil warned, her voice barely audible as she tightened her grip on her weapon. "We need to get out of here." But it was too late. The beast lunged at them, roaring in fury. Aiden and Sybil fought back with all their might, using everything they'd learned during their journey together. They dodged, parried, and counterattacked, each strike sending tremors through the ground. Just as it seemed they might be overwhelmed, High Priestess Elysia and her cultists burst into the clearing. The beast turned its attention to them, roaring in triumph as more enemies appeared. Aiden, Sybil, and their allies found themselves surrounded, outnumbered, and facing a powerful enemy. But they refused to give up. Using every ounce of strength within them, they fought back against Elysia's cultists, determined to protect each other, and the knowledge hidden within Aiden's staff. The battle raged on, the air filled with the sound of clashing weapons, grunts of exertion, and the cries of the wounded. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the clearing, the four allies emerged victorious. They were battered, bruised, and exhausted, but they'd survived another day. Aiden could feel something within him, a power that he didn't fully understand, but knew would be crucial in their fight against Elysia and her cult. He looked at Sybil, gratitude and determination burning in his eyes. "We have to keep moving," he said hoarsely. "There's still so much we don't know." As the sun dipped below the canopy of leaves and shadows enveloped the forest, the wary travelers stumbled upon a secluded clearing hidden among dense undergrowth. Their clothes tattered and covered in dirt, Aiden and Sybil exchanged heavy breaths, grateful for the brief respite. "We must rest here," Aiden murmured to Sybil, his eyes scanning their surroundings warily. "The beast is still out there." Sybil nodded, her own gaze sweeping the area. She felt a strange connection to this forest, a sense of unease that she could not ignore. As they gathered dry twigs and flint for a fire, Aiden's staff with intricate runes and carvings pulsed gently with an inner light. He frowned, feeling an unsettling pull toward the pedestal they had found earlier. "We should return to pedestal," he said, his voice barely audible. "I believe it holds answers we need." Sybil hesitated, glancing around nervously. "But what about the cultists?" she asked, her eyes searching the forest for any signs of danger. Aiden sighed, gripping his staff tightly. "They will find us eventually," he said, determination etched in his features. "We must be prepared." With their makeshift fire crackling between them, Aiden and Sybil shared a quiet meal in the heart of the forest, their senses on high alert for any signs of danger. The night was long and cold, but they knew that the dawn would bring new challenges and perhaps answers. As dawn approached, they set off more towards the ancient stone pedestal hidden within the dense woods. They had barely entered the forest when a loud crash echoed through the trees, followed by growls and roars that seemed to shake the very earth beneath them. A massive beast, larger than any they had encountered before, burst forth from the undergrowth, its eyes fixed on Aiden and Sybil with an intensity that made their blood run cold. Its body was covered in shimmering scales, and its eyes burned like embers, a terrifying sight to behold. Aiden raised his staff, feeling a surge of power coursing through him as he prepared for battle. Sybil stood by his side, her own weapon at the ready. Together they faced the beast, knowing that their lives and the fate of the world might hinge on this encounter. The fight was fierce and grueling, but Aiden and Sybil's combined strength managed to keep the beast at bay. As the sun crept higher in the sky, they finally managed to subdue it, breathing heavily as they gazed upon their fallen foe. Aiden approached the creature cautiously, his eyes drawn to the stone pedestal nestled among its remains. With a surge of determination, he reached out and touched the ancient rune etched into the stone, feeling another jolt of power course through him. As the day wore on, Aiden and Cybele continued their journey through the dense forest, their minds reeling from the events that had transpired. They knew that they were no longer just scholars, they were now beings of immense power, bound to a destiny far greater than they could have ever imagined. Echoes of the Abyssal Reawakening. Aiden and Cybele arrive at an ancient stone pedestal hidden within the dense woods. They feel a strange energy emanating from it as they approach, their senses heightened by recent events. Scholar Aiden, this must be where we were meant to go all along. Beast Cybele, I sense great power here, but also danger. Aiden looks around nervously, sensing the presence of unseen eyes watching them from the shadows. He raises his staff, the runes and carvings now pulsating gently with an inner light. Scholar Aiden, we must be cautious. The cultists may have spies in these woods. Beast Cybele, agreed. We can't afford to let our guard down. Aiden takes a deep breath, focusing on the pedestal ahead. They move forward slowly, scanning their surroundings for any signs of movement or danger. As they reach the pedestal, Aiden touches the ancient rune etched into its surface with trembling hands. Instantly, he feels a connection to something greater, his heart racing as powerful energies surge through him. Cybele growls softly in response, her body quivering with anticipation. A moment passes, then another, and Aiden begins to feel calmer, more focused. He looks up at Cybele, who gazes back at him with fierce determination in her eyes. Together, they stand there, united in their purpose, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Suddenly, a loud crash echoes through the forest, followed by the sound of rushing footsteps. Aiden and Cybele exchange a knowing glance as they prepare for battle. Alicia steps forward from the trees, surrounded by a group of cultists. Her eyes are cold and calculating, and her voice is filled with malice as she addresses them. High Priestess Alicia, you have proven to be a thorn in my side, scholars, but soon I will harness the power you wield, and this world shall bow before me. Aiden's staff pulsed gently with an inner light as he stood shoulder to shoulder with Cybele, who had transformed into a magnificent beast. They were surrounded by Alicia and her cultists, their eyes glinting with malice as they prepared to strike. We shall not let you control our fates, Aiden declared, his voice resonating through the dense undergrowth of the forest. You will never harness the powers within us. Alicia's lips curled into a sneer, her eyes narrowing as she raised her staff high above her head. Then you shall suffer for your defiance, she hissed, and with a roar, the cultists charged at Aiden and Cybele. Aiden summoned a shield of swirling energy to protect himself and Cybele, as they exchanged fierce blows with their assailants. The battle raged on, each side refusing to yield. Amidst the chaos, Aiden spotted a small clearing hidden among the trees, and he fought his way through the cultists toward it, dragging Cybele along with him. Reaching the clearing, they found themselves facing off against Alicia alone. Her eyes glowed with an eerie light as she raised her staff, preparing to deliver a deadly blow. But before she could strike, Aiden's staff erupted in a brilliant flash of light, and he called upon the power within him. A surge of energy coursed through his body, and Aiden found himself transforming into a being of pure magic, far more powerful than ever before. Cybele joined him, her own transformation complete, as she stood at his side, both now ready to face Alicia. As they fought, the air around them crackled with energy, and the forest shook with each blow they exchanged. Aiden knew that this battle would determine their fates, whether they would remain human or embrace their newfound powers. But he also felt a deep connection to Cybele, knowing that she shared his desire for control over their destinies. In the end, it was Cybele who delivered the final blow, sending Alicia tumbling to the ground. As the cultist leader lay defeated, Aiden and Cybele stood victorious, their powers shining brightly in the dim light of the secluded clearing. They had fought for their freedom, and they had won. In the days that followed, Aiden and Cybele wandered through the ancient forest, learning to control their newfound powers together. They discovered that the stone pedestal hidden within the woods was a relic from an age-long past, a remnant of a forgotten experiment designed to create beings capable of challenging a cosmic threat looming over the world. Together, Aiden and Cybele decided to use their newfound powers for good, dedicating themselves to protecting the world from the ancient evil that threatened to engulf it. They knew that their destinies were intertwined, and they would face whatever challenges came their way as one.